Lime's Wuxia whispers. Chapter 879. At the back of the procession, Ji Yushu said to Gao Yang, third older brother also put in a lot of effort. In order to let the commoners of Longyi accept sister-in-law, he had long started to speak. Heroes have a weakness for the charms of a beauty. Gao Yang shook his fan and sighed. Then what to do? It is just that His Majesty must be very angry, and there are also those young ladies in the residence who have deep feelings for third older brother. One fear that sister-in-law will be entangled this time. What is there to be afraid of? Gao Yang said. Shen Miao is not an ordinary person. It is not certain who will be the one torturing who. Finishing, he said in disappointment. Now that one is returning to the original position, one instead missed the days in Mingqi. Who says otherwise? Ji Yushu also sighed and patted Gao Yang's shoulder, and said with the tone of a fellow sufferer, let's go. The Great Liang's palace occupied a wide area, and there were many buildings and side halls that were connected together. There were golden glazed tiles and bright red pillars. Most likely it was because the imperial family liked gold and red that the entire palace had a sense of majesty. The stone lion at the entrance was mighty and arrogant. On the dragon throne that was made of gold, a golden dragon was hovering, and the dragon's head was at the back of the chair with 2 red gems. The dragon's tail was entwined to the armrest, and the fine scales on the tip of the tail were carved vividly, as if in the next moment it would fly up to the 9 heavens from the dragon throne. At this moment, there was no one in the empty court hall, and there was only the man sitting on the dragon throne. He sat upright and dignified, but one did not know why, at this moment, when the sun was about to extinguish and the candles in the palace were not lit, when the light dimmed inch by inch, that dignified figure seemed especially lonely. There was a da-da-da sound of footsteps in the great hall. A female slowly walked over with a long tail and wearing a 9 phoenix crown on her head. She had a gentle smile as she walked towards the man sitting on the dragon throne. She said, Your Majesty is sitting here alone again, and did not even inform this concubine. That man then raised his head and seemed to see the person who came. So it is the Empress. Empress Xianda smiled gently. What matter is Your Majesty troubled about? Jingxing has returned today. Emperor Yonglu rubbed his forehead. He also brought back that Mingqi female. I've told him countless times to cut off all contact with that woman. Not only did he not listen, he also intercepted my men, acted first and reported later, married that woman back to Great Liang and brought her to Longyi, and even made her the legal concubine. Does Your Majesty not like Shen Miao? Empress Xianda's voice was soft. Those who are not of my race must have a different heart. Emperor Yonglu only said 8 words. 8 words, but also represented his meaning. Those who were not from the Great Liang would naturally not do things that were loyal to the Great Liang. His Majesty doesn't like Shen Miao, but Jingxing does. Empress Xianda said, otherwise one would not have traveled thousands of miles to marry Shen Miao back to Longyi, would not have sent 99 sets of betrothal gifts, and would not have built a good reputation for Shen Miao among the common people. After a pause, she then said, and would not have disobeyed His Majesty. Foxy charm lord. Emperor Yonglu said in a deep voice, but there was suppressed anger in his voice. Perhaps Shen Miao really has some outstanding points. Empress Xianda comforted. Jingxing is a child who has his own ideas. Your Majesty had picked so many beauties for him but did not fancy them. Now that he is willing to do this for Shen Miao, there must be a reason. Lime's Wuxia whispers, Your Majesty is not willing to believe Jingxing once? It is not that Zhan does not believe him, but Zhan does not believe Shen Miao. Emperor Yonglu said. But Your Majesty also have no other way, is it not so? Emperor Yonglu looked at the other with some displeasure. Is Empress trying to say that Zhan is incapable? Of course not. Empress Xianda smiled. Your Majesty is ultimately unable to harden your heart against Jingxing. That is why Jingxing would be so unscrupulous and act first and report later. Naturally it was because he knew that His Majesty would not really punish him out of anger. Chapter 880. What you said is right. After a long while, Emperor Yonglu replied. But there is no more time. It does not matter who Jingxing marries, as Zhan do not want to control him, but he cannot bring back variables. That woman's identity is too special, and if Jingxing were to listen to her words, it might bring about changes to the situation in the future. Zhan will not allow such a thing to happen. There is no more time. Emperor Yongli's voice was deep. For the great cause of the country, Jean can sacrifice anything and there is nothing that cannot be ruthless. He said, let both of them make a trip to the palace tomorrow. Jean want to see what kind of female can confuse his mind and also remind him not to forget his own identity. Do not forget his own nature just because he stayed in Mingqi for 2 years. Empress Xianda's brows slightly wrinkled. Jean let him marry an imperial consort and Jean can also let him take a side consort. Finishing, he stood up and walked down the long stairs and out of the quiet main hall. Empress Xianda stood at the same spot and her eyes seemed to be sad. After a moment she sighed and followed out. There was only one prince of the Great Liang and that was Emperor Yongli's biological brother, Prince Rui. This Prince Rui's identity was very mysterious, and it was said that he followed an expert to travel around at a young age. Thus from young till now, almost no one had seen what this Prince Rui looked like. Even Deng Gonggong, who followed Emperor Yonglu for the longest time, did not know anything about this Prince Rui. Until 2 years ago, there was news that Prince Rui had returned to Longyi and at the altar, the commoners were able to see the true face of this Prince Rui. He was indeed distinguished and beautiful, elegant and magnificent. The hearts of the young ladies and daughters-in-law of Longyi were tied to this Prince Rui. But with the sudden appearance of Prince Rui, everyone initially had their suspicions and wondered if this person was an imposter. But after thinking about it, the imperial family was so strict that they would not make a mistake. Moreover, Prince Rui's appearance was very similar to the Empress Dowager, and there were some similarities with Emperor Yonglu. The Great Liang's imperial Xia family were all beautiful, and this was an ironclad fact that there was no doubt. After this Prince Rui returned to Longyi, he resumed his prince status and went to court with the ministers. Some of the ministers objected, saying that this Prince Rui had not been involved in court affairs for so many years and knew nothing about the situation of Longyi and the Great Liang. How could he be allowed to participate in court matters? Wasn't that just messing around? Emperor Yonglu was furious and punished a few of the officials who had caused a ruckus. However, most of the officials were against it and Emperor Yonglu could not punish them one by one. Later on, it was this Prince Rui who personally handled several difficult matters that the imperial court had been delaying. As a result, the voices of opposition gradually weakened. How could it be possible to say that he knew nothing about the affairs of the imperial court? It was obvious that he knew a lot. He hadn't been in Longyi for so many years and hadn't participated in it, but he had the ability. How could that prove anything? Was he really a genius? In short, in the eyes of the commoners of the Great Liang, Prince Rui was a youth with good looks, good temperament and good ability. The most important point was that he had a lot of money. For example, this Prince Rui's residence was as magnificent as the imperial palace. However, Emperor Yonglu was a wise ruler and was very lenient towards his younger brother, so he did not blame Prince Rui for this. It was just that the commoners passing by would occasionally stare at the door of Prince Rui's residence and drool, thinking about which family's daughter would be so lucky to enter this residence to be a Wangfei. That would be even better than entering the palace to be a concubine. Who knew that after guessing, Prince Rui actually married a Mingqi's young lady as his wife. Chapter 881. When Shen Miao stepped into the main doors of the residence of Prince Rui, a group of guards dressed in official robes stood straight and greeted her, respectfully welcome Wangfei. Xie Jingxing hugged Shen Miao's shoulders and called out to everyone as they walked in, "Carry the things in. Is the bridal chamber ready?" Replying to Your Highness, "Everything is ready." A 50-plus-year-old housekeeper ran out from the innermost. He had kind eyes and a simple and honest face. "May Wangfei take a look? It has been hard on you," Xie Jingxing said. "Not at all, not at all." The old housekeeper smiled. "It is good that Your Highness is back." He then raised his eyes and looked curiously at Shen Miao. Shen Miao faintly felt that the status of this housekeeper was not low, else Xie Jingxing, such a vile person, would not speak in such a good tone. She raised her head to meet the other's gaze and gently smiled. The housekeeper seemed to be somewhat flattered, and his face turned red in an instant. Xie Jingxing pulled Shen Miao up in dissatisfaction and walked forward. "Don't look anymore." When Shen Miao arrived at the bridal chamber that the housekeeper mentioned, she could not help but be tongue-tied. The bed was big enough for 7 or 8 people to sleep on. It was covered with a soft blanket, and the bedding was bright red. That was fine. After all, a bridal chamber was supposed to be festive. But what was the meaning of the spring scenery on the walls of the bridal chamber? There were also all sorts of lamps, incense that looked very intimate. Shen Miao said. It is better for me to find another place to sleep. What is the matter, Furen? The housekeeper asked. Is there anything in this room that you are not satisfied with? Please say this old servant will let people change it. Xie Jingxing swept a glance at the old housekeeper. What kind of messy things are pasted on the walls? Tear it off. That will not do. The old housekeeper insisted. These are all very meaningful. After all, this is the wedding ceremony of your highness and Furen. One heard that both of you have not entered the nuptial chamber, and it is the first time in the world, so there would always be some doubts. This old servant had searched for these for a long time. Shan Miao. The words of the servants of Prince Rui's residence were too direct. Even if she was not a shy young lady, she would still feel her face blushing when she heard these undisguised words. Xie Jingxing put down the dagger in his hand and stared at the old housekeeper with eyes that could kill. Many thanks, Uncle Tang. But I don't need to be taught. He gritted his teeth. I will. Uncle Tang was startled. Even so, there is no end to learning. Shen Miao flicked her sleeves and walked out of the door. Really cannot listen to this conversation. This day was spent in the chaos of war and chaos. Shen Miao had just arrived and did not show any squeamish side. Moreover, Longyi was a place with outstanding people, so there was nothing to be picky about. The servants here were also very respectful to her, but they still called her princess, which made her feel a little awkward. In the end, he still wasn't used to it. Even for the dinner at night, Uncle Tang specially made a few light dishes for her according to the taste of the Mingqi's Ding capital's people. In the afternoon, Xie Jingxing went out for a while. He was probably very busy on weekdays. After all, it was not like when he was in Mingqi. Xie Jingxing, who returned to the Great Liang, was a Prince Rui, who was busy with political affairs. After washing up, the sky had already darkened. Shen Miao returned to the bridal chamber. It was not that she was willing to come here, but it was because other than this bridal chamber, the residence of Prince Rui did not prepare any other rooms for her. Jingzhe and Guyu were still here to serve her, and Bai Lu and Shuangjiang were also promoted to head maids. Jingzhe was combing Shen Miao's hair as she spoke. Before coming to Longyi, this servant was still thinking that one was unfamiliar with the place and was somewhat afraid. One did not expect that after coming, one would be able to relax. The people in the residence of Prince Rui are extremely respectful to young lady. One think that it is because son-in-law has trained them well. Chapter 882. Still call her young lady. Guyu said, it should be called Furen. Yes, you should call her madam. Jingzhe quickly changed her words and said, no wonder everyone say that Great Liang is good. After seeing it today, it is indeed a well-deserved reputation. Not to mention Furen, even this servant also likes this place. Oh, Shen Miao teased her. Is it not good to live in the Ding capital? Why do you like this place better? Jingzhe thought about it. It is not that it is not good, it is just that the people here treat Furen better. Madam came to Longyi with the identity of Qin Wang Fei. This is a good start. I feel that it will get better and better in the future. Shen Miao laughed in spite of herself. When she was in Mingqi, the second and third household in the Shen residence harbored evil intentions, and old Shen Furen did not have any good intentions towards the first household. Her situation and the Shen family's situation was precarious. In the eyes of the maidservants, her life was not easy at all. In addition, there were rumors of him being an idiot, so there was discord in their hearts. It was different in Longyi. She married here because of the title of Rui Wang Fei. Xie Jingxing's attitude towards her also made the surrounding people not dare to be disrespectful to her. It was always good to have a good start from the beginning. People will subconsciously choose to forget the bad things in the past and choose a new start. But would it really get better and better? Shen Miao did not think so. Not mentioning about Qi's side. One feared that the things that Xie Jingxing planned would not be simple. The crisis in Great Liang was not necessarily less than Mingqi. It would probably be even more dangerous and complicated. Riding on a tiger's back, it was difficult to dismount. Now, he could only brace himself and charge in. However, in her heart, She felt a lightness that she hadn't felt in a long time. Just as he was thinking, he heard Jingzhe and Guyu speaking, "Greetings to your highness." Shen Miao raised her eyes and saw Xie Jingxing walking in. Xie Jingxing said, "Withdraw." Jingzhe and Guyu quickly withdrew. He walked over to the table and sat down. As he waited for Shen Miao to comb her hair, he asked, "How is the habit?" "There is no problem," Shen Miao said. Long Yi indeed lives up to his reputation. Xie Jingxing poured a cup of tea for himself. "But you have to brace yourself." Shen Miao was suspicious. "What happened to you again?" "Imperial brother has issued an edict to summon us to the palace tomorrow." He said, "Imperial brother is old-fashioned and strict. He's very dissatisfied with me marrying a wife this time, so he'll probably threaten you." Shen Miao glanced at him. "Oh, very dissatisfied with you marrying a wife. You indeed did things behind his back and even lied to my father and mother that he had long agreed." Xie Jingxing smiled. "It is only an expedient measure. Moreover, so what if he is dissatisfied with you? There are many people in the world that are dissatisfied with you, and Mingqi is like the carps crossing the river. Did you not send them?" He made a beheading gesture and lazily said, "Send them on their way?" Shen Miao also smiled and said, "Are you hinting at something?" "That is not the case," Xie Jingxing said. "Our Xie family is not the same as the Fu family. We will not commit fratricide." Shen Miao said, "One did not see that you all are people with feelings and righteousness. Do not believe?" Xie Jingxing asked. Shen Miao shook her head. "The imperial family has been emotionless since ancient times. Now the intimacy is only because you all do not have any interest entanglements, or it could be said that you are standing on the same side. When one day your standpoint is different, or if you want to snatch something, you will still take action to protect your own share. At that time there would be no need to talk about brothers." Even though she tried her best to speak calmly, there was an involuntary sense of disgust in her words. Xie Jingxing's sharp eyes stared at her for a long time, and Shen Miao felt somewhat uncomfortable under his gaze before asking, "Why are you looking at me for?" Chapter 883. He shook his head and sighed before smiling. "You seem to not believe in the feelings between the imperial family." Shen Miao pursed her lips and did not say a word. One could not blame her for not believing. In her previous life, she was in the palace, and as the mistress of the 6 palaces, she had seen many things that were unknown to others. In this world a woman's life was bitter, mostly because of love. Even Mei Foran had fought with her for most of her life, but it was all because of a man's favor. But the men in the palace were different. She had seen princes who loved their concubines in every possible way, and the next day they would send their concubines to their advisors just to win them over. She had also seen that in order to balance the various forces, childhood sweethearts would compromise to become a wife of equal status, and then marry the daughter of a high-ranking official in a sedan chair. Males would abandon females like a pair of worn-out shoes, and males would not be willing to sacrifice their lives for their brothers. There were many cases of brothers killing each other and father and son killing each other. After seeing so many of these things, Shen Miao found it hard to believe what imperial family affection was. Perhaps there was, but she refused to believe it. "You will understand in the future." Xie Jingxing shook his head and changed the topic. "Imperial older brother is not much of a person, but is still a good emperor. It is just that to you it is not possible to be friends." Shen Miao thought that only Xie Jingxing would be able to say such things about Emperor Yonglu. "You do not need to be afraid even if he threatens you. With me around, no one would dare to touch you." Xie Jingxing continued, "Imperial sister-in-law is a good person and can be friends. In the future, if there is a chance, you can talk to her more." Shen Miao's heart moved. Xie Jingxing seemed to be explaining something to her. "You are not going tomorrow?" she asked. "Why? Afraid to be alone?" Xie Jingxing saw her frown and said, "I will go with you. It is just that imperial older brother will definitely send me away. If he said anything to you, you do not need to take it to heart and just treat it as dog fart." Shen Miao was silent for a long time. "Understood." Xie Jingxing smiled and propped his chin up as he looked at her. "Shen Jiao. What? Feel that after you came to Long Yi, you have become much more well-behaved." His eyes were full of smiles. "Do not worry. Husband will not abandon you." Shun Miao took a deep breath and placed the comb on the dressing table before standing up. I am going to sleep. When are you leaving? Leave? Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows. Why would I leave my bridal chamber? Shun Miao's eyes widened and Xie Jingxing also stood up and laid down on the bed. Shun Miao. Shouldn't this kind of thing be tacit? Weren't all the novels about fake couples where one would sleep in the study room and the other in the bridal chamber? How could Xie Jingxing be like this? She said, then I'll go out to sleep. Before she finished speaking, her arm was suddenly pulled by someone and Shun Miao did not have the time to stand firm and fell onto the bed. A pair of strong arms supported her, but it just so happened that she was in his embrace. The tip of Shun Miao's nose was filled with the pleasant green bamboo scent from the man's body, but his chest was heaving up and down and his breathing was warm. For a moment, she did not dare to look up at the other's expression. After being frozen for an unknown amount of time, Xie Jingxing's low voice sounded from above. 2 months. What? She subconsciously raised her head and met with a pair of peach blossom eyes that seemed to be smiling yet not smiling. However, at this moment, the meaning flowing in the eyes seemed to have a strong invasive nature, making Shun Miao's heart involuntarily beat, pong pong pong. Xie Jingxing hugged her and lazily said, I will give you 2 months' time. After 2 months, I will not be able to bear it anymore. Shun Miao was startled. Xie Jingxing's lips hooked up and his smile was evil and meaningful. He said, being a gentleman is not my hobby. I have never been a good person. Shun Miao suddenly jumped up and said, I will sleep in the study. Xie Jingxing pulled her back and said, I will sleep outside. Shun Miao did not dare to look at his eyes. Previously in Mingqi, there were still people from the Shun mansion, so Xie Jingxing did not dare to be presumptuous. Now she did not have any acquaintances in Longyi, and the most important thing was that she had no way to refuse. She and Xie Jingxing were husband and wife and everything that she did was what she should do. Xie Jingxing pushed the door open and seemed to leave in a happy mood. Shun Miao caressed her heart, which was still beating fiercely. After Xie Jingxing left Mingqi and returned to Great Liang, he indeed became more presumptuous. It was as if when he was in the Ding capital, he still restrained some of his temper, but now he showed his original side in front of Shun Miao without any scruples. How did the husband and wife in this world get along? Shun Miao thought that in her previous lifetime, she did not know how a real husband and wife got along. Thus in this lifetime she had some experience in other matters, but in this matter, she was still like an ignorant child. After a long while, Shun Miao recovered to her senses and simply covered her head with the quilt and fell down. When the car arrives at the mountain, there will be a road, and when the boat arrives at the bridgehead, it will naturally be straight. Other matters would have to rely on the road of the previous lifetime, but for this matter, in this lifetime, one would grope around and let nature take its course. Chapter 884. On the morning of the second day, Shun Miao followed Xie Jingxing to the palace to see Emperor Yonglu. Because it was the first time they met, she still had to wear the prince consort grade attire. When Xie Jingxing came out, Shun Miao could not help but be surprised. The Great Liang and Mingqi's attire were definitely different. The Mingqi's was more exquisite and beautiful while the Great Liang's was more elegant. Xie Jingxing wore a purple gold robe embroidered with a qilin, an official's hat, green boots and an agate belt, which made him look very dignified. After taking off his usual frivolous appearance, he seemed somewhat unapproachable. After Shun Miao ate with him, they rode the carriage to the imperial palace. Because of last night's matter, Shun Miao felt somewhat uncomfortable, but Xie Jingxing seemed to be very satisfied with her appearance. In the carriage, he deliberately mentioned it and his words were quite nasty. Shun Miao thought that this person was really unscrupulous because he was in the Great Liang. But because it was the first time seeing Emperor Yonglu, her heart was somewhat heavy, but because of Xie Jingxing's jesting, she felt much more relaxed. The residence of Prince Rui was not far from the imperial palace, and one did not know if Xie Jingxing did it deliberately. When the guards at the palace gate saw Xie Jingxing, they directly let him pass. Jingzhe and Guyu, as Shun Miao's top maids, followed behind her but did not dare to breathe loudly and walked carefully, afraid that they would make any rude moves and cause trouble to Shun Miao. The palace maids and eunuchs in the Great Liang Imperial Palace were all sitting with their heads down on their own matters, but when Shun Miao walked past, She could feel some probing gazes falling on her. This was the first time coming to the Great Liang Imperial Palace, and perhaps everyone had some opinions about what kind of wife Xie Jingxing had married. The common people were tolerant towards her, but it was different for those in official positions. In addition to Xie Jingxing's sensitive identity, if Shen Miao guessed correctly, the title of Rui Wangfei was something that many people were fighting for. Her every move not only represented that she was Rui Wangfei, but also represented the demeanor of the Ming Qi's Shun family. Thinking like this, Shen Miao involuntarily straightened her back and became more dignified, and unconsciously brought out the Empress airs of her previous lifetime. Xie Jingxing noticed her actions and smiled playfully before whispering in her ear, "Do not need to be so nervous. You are about to outshine the Empress." Shen Miao glared at him. What time was this? But Xie Jingxing was still this indecent. There were many eyes and ears in the palace, and some of them were probably Emperor Yongli's men. If Xie Jingxing's attitude was passed to Emperor Yongli's ears, would he give her the title of femme fatale? In her previous life, she had been a courteous and obedient empress, but she had never been a demoness who brought disaster to the country. Just as she was thinking, Xie Jingxing grabbed her hand. Shen Miao subconsciously wanted to break free and said, "Let someone see." So what if others saw? Xie Jingxing was displeased. Ben Wang and Wang Fei need other people's permission to hold hands? Shen Miao still wanted to say something but saw that she had already followed Xie Jingsu to a side hall, and there was a fat eunuch standing outside the door. When he saw both of them, he said, "Your Highness the Prince of First Rank as well. His Majesty and her Ladyship have been waiting for a long time." One did not know if it was intentional or unintentional, but he did not greet Shen Miao. "Deng Gonggong, this is this prince's beloved wife." Xie Jingxing did not want to let it go and pushed Shen Miao to the front. "Why are you not greeting?" Shen Miao rolled her eyes at Xie Jingxing in her heart. This Deng Gonggong was obviously under his master's orders to treat her like this. Who was this master? Other than Emperor Yonglu, who else could it be? Since it was Emperor Yongli's view, not only did Xie Jingxing not go along with it, he even deliberately dug it out. Were they here to quarrel today? Deng Gonggong's smile did not change and immediately spoke according to the person. He looked at Shen Miao and said, "So it is Princess Consort. This servant has eyes but cannot see. Beg Princess Consort for forgiveness." Chapter 885. Shen Miao was different from Xie Jingxing. She smiled gently. "It is all right." Xie Jingxing glanced at eunuch Deng and said, "All right. Imperial older brother is so dissatisfied with me. Why do you still want me to come?" He then smiled. "If it was not for Wang Fei persuading me today, who would want to come and see him?" Eunuch Deng and Shen Miao. Shen Miao pulled his sleeve. Xie Jingxing said, "What are you afraid of? You are the mistress of my residence of Prince Rui, and do not need to be afraid of others. Do not be afraid. Husband will help you if anyone bullies you." He did not hide his low voice, and even the quick-witted eunuch Deng could not help but reveal an awkward expression. There was a sudden violent coughing sound in the main hall. Eunuch Deng quivered and said, "May your Highness the Prince and Wang Fei come in with me." Shen Miao was pulled by Xie Jingxing and followed in. She kept her head down all the way and did not raise her head. This was the etiquette for meeting the emperor for the first time. Shen Miao knew that Emperor Yonglu did not like her very much. Thus she was not willing to make any mistakes in these details and did it flawlessly. One could only see the smooth marble of the main hall carved with cloud patterns and the soft woolen blanket on top. This younger official brother greets imperial older brother. Xie Jingxing said lazily and even made a fake bow. Xie Jingxing was so presumptuous, but Shen Miao could not. She did not kneel down and bowed. "This official wife greets your majesty." "You are Shen Miao?" After a long while, a dignified and deep voice sounded, "Raise your head." Shen Miao raised her head. The man sitting on the high seat was not very old and looked to be in his 30s. He had sword-like brows, starry eyes, a high nose and thin lips. He looked 70 to 80% similar to Xie Jingxing. But Xie Jingxing's facial features were soft, but his expression was sharp. His beauty and heroic spirit blended extremely well. As for the middle-aged man in front of her, he did not have that soft temperament due to his high position all year round. Compared to Xie Jingxing's naughtiness, He was more upright and outspoken. His eyes were deep and cold when he looked at people, as if he could see through the bottom of one's heart. Although the two brothers looked similar and were both elegant and noble, their temperaments were poles apart. Xie Jingxing looked at the young master who was like a playboy and treated everything with a frivolous laziness. However, this person was extremely harsh on himself and others and was always astute and steady. Shun Miao was surprised in her heart as she did not expect that the wise ruler Emperor Yonglu was actually so young and had such a dignified appearance. He was completely different from the half-old man with a head full of white hair she had imagined. When she was sizing up Emperor Yonglu, Emperor Yonglu was also sizing her up. Emperor Yonglu's gaze became even sharper, bringing with it an oppressive pressure. His face was cold as if he would explode in anger at any moment. If it was an ordinary girl being sized up by him like this, she would probably be scared to tears. But Shun Miao was different from ordinary young ladies. Previously, when she was facing Fu Xiuyi's cold face towards her was much more than this. Seeing that she was still calm, a sharp glint flashed across Emperor Yongli's eyes. In the hall, Xie Jingxing's lazy voice was heard. Has Imperial Brother seen enough? If I look any longer, I will feel uncomfortable. Shun Miao paused for a moment and could not hide the surprise in her heart. She had been guessing what was the relationship between Xie Jingxing and Emperor Yonglu. She also faintly sensed that these two brothers should be more sincere than the imperial brothers of Mingqi, but she did not expect that Xie Jingxing dared to speak to Emperor Yonglu like that. Moreover, Emperor Yonglu was not angry at all. In the imperial family, there were many rules, and in addition to the subtle position they held, it was impossible to have brotherly feelings like the commoners. It was already a luxury for brothers to not harm each other and be friendly. Moreover, Xie Jingxing had been in Mingqi for so many years, but now he and Emperor Yonglu were like ordinary brothers that lived together since young. Chapter 886. Jingxing. Bengong will also get angry if you say it like this. A smiling voice was heard and Shun Miao's eyes landed on the female beside Emperor Yonglu. One think that this was Emperor Yongli's wife, the Empress of the Great Liang, Empress Xianda. Empress Xianda looked younger than Emperor Yonglu, and was wearing a pomelo-colored court robe embroidered with gold with a wide belt. This attire was considered very simple, and she herself was very dignified. One look and one could tell that she was a well-educated female from a wealthy family, intelligent and calm. She sat beside Emperor Yonglu and smiled at Xie Jingxing. Shun Miao also remembered that Xie Jingxing had praised Empress Xianda before. There were not many females that could be praised by such a picky person like Xie Jingxing, and since Empress Xianda could become one of them, naturally there was something special about her. Even if Xie Jingxing did not say anything, Shun Miao also had a good impression of Empress Xianda because of her elegant and calm bearing. Even Shun Miao, who was an empress in the previous lifetime, felt ashamed of her inferiority. Jingxing's wife, Mingqi's Shen family's young lady. Empress Xianda nodded her head at her and smiled gently. Bengong had always been curious what kind of young lady could make Jingxing change his heart. Now that one see it, one understand that Jingxing's eyesight is not bad. Shun Miao repeatedly said that she did not dare. Empress Xianda's praises made Emperor Yonglu dissatisfied. He glanced at Empress Xianda and seemed to be somewhat unhappy but said in a deep voice, "The rules of Mingqi and the Great Liang are different. Since one is married to the Great Liang's wife, one must follow the Great Liang's rules." Imperial older brother. Xie Jingxing interrupted his words. This younger brother will naturally teach him the rules. If it is not taught, Imperial older brother need not worry. This younger brother will deal with the people of Prince Rui's residence, and Imperial older brother can just take care of your own matters. Xie Jingxing was so protective of Shun Miao, and did not give any face to Emperor Yonglu in front of her. Emperor Yonglu finally got angry and said, "You just protect your wife like this? Zhen is not allowed to say one more sentence? Do you want Zhen to let you sit in this position? Forget it." Xie Jingxing waved his hands without a care. This younger brother is not interested. This younger brother is not interested. It is not easy for this younger brother to marry a young lady, and if the wife runs away, what will this younger brother do? A lonely life? Shun Miao. If Xie Jingxing was Fu Xiuyi's brother and spoke to Fu Xiuyi like this, one feared that he would have died 8 or 10 times. Emperor Yonglu stood up and gave Shen Miao a threatening look before he flicked his sleeves and left. Halfway through, he saw that Xie Jingxing was still standing by Shen Miao's side and did not have the slightest intention to follow, so he immediately flew into a rage. "Get over here." Xie Jingxing was helpless and said to Empress Xianda, "Imperial saw, I will leave Jiao Jiao to you." He then said to Shen Miao, "I will come and pick you up after the matter is settled." After Xie Jingxing and Emperor Yonglu left, Empress Xianda then smiled gently and stood up to walk to Shen Miao's side. "The room is strangely stuffy. Since you have never been to the Great Liang's imperial palace, Ben Gong will also bring you around." Shen Miao quickly complied. The descendants of Emperor Xianda were very good, and did not have the airs of an empress. The two of them strolled around in the imperial garden. On the way, Empress Xianda asked her if she had gotten used to Longya. Her words were like an intimate eldest sister, making one's heart feel warm. Ever since Jingxing returned to Longya, Ben Gong had not seen him fall in love with any young lady for the past few years. Originally one thought that it was impossible for him to like any young lady, but one did not expect that he would marry a wife in Mingqi. Even though it was somewhat unexpected, one's heart was very comforted. Otherwise, Ben Gong would worry that he would not look for a young lady for the rest of his life and be alone. When Shen Miao heard it, she smiled. How would the prince of first rank be alone? When he was in Mingqi, there were many young ladies who adored him, so no matter what, he would not be alone. Chapter 887. Empress Xianda smiled and shook her head. "Then have you ever seen him being especially good to anyone?" Shen Miao was startled. Empress Xianda had already started to speak on her own. Jingxing and the emperor look like different people, but in fact both brothers are the same. The emperor looks cold on the surface and his character is also cold. Jingxing looks gentle and easy to talk to, but in fact his character is also cold. Most likely he himself is clear that his identity is special and things that should not be thought about should not be thought about. She looked at Shen Miao and smiled. "One think that Jingxing had told you about his secret, so it is not a secret." Such a small child, from young he had to hide himself to live. Be it hiding his identity or emotions, his self-control was gradually honed, but his heart also hardened. This was a good thing for the imperial family, but it was not for him. Ben Gong had always thought that if Jingxing was like the emperor, then this lifetime would be too much of a loss. Fortunately his luck was better than the emperor's and he met you. When Shen Miao heard Empress Xianda's words, there was some hesitation in her heart. In the short period of interaction with Empress Xianda had a temperament that made one like her at first sight. It was different from Cong Ziqing, who deliberately fawned on her. Empress Xianda was the kind that quietly moisturized and made one feel comfortable. She seemed to live very realistically, and was not like a female in the harem. But what did she mean when she said that Xie Jingxing's luck was better than Emperor Yongli's? This was too difficult to answer, so Shen Miao could only quietly listen and not speak. His Majesty had a very deep entrustment for Jingxing, Empress Xianda said. He hoped that Jingxing would be able to live comfortably and happily, but did not wish for Jingxing to change his original intention because of a covetous and comfortable life. His Majesty had a hard time, so if His Majesty hurt you because of this, one must not blame him. Shen Miao smiled gently. This official's wife is not qualified to blame His Majesty's decision. It is just that. She looked at Empress Xianda. Does Empress have something to say to this official's wife? Empress Xianda smiled and sighed. Just now when I first saw you, Ben Gong felt that you have a familiar feeling. You are a smart young lady. Ben Gong know that, but smart people easily see things as rigid. If one does not untie it, the knot in one's heart would never be untied. Shen Miao slightly frowned. She faintly felt that Empress Xianda's words had a hidden meaning. His Majesty thinks highly of Jingxing. Although His Majesty has agreed to Jingxing's marriage, he is still unhappy. Jingxing naturally has ways to resist His Majesty's decision, but you are different. You are a Mingqi's young lady, and in the Great Liang, there will be many restrictions. Empress Xianda said, Ben Gong likes you very much, but Ben Gong is also His Majesty's wife. Ben Gong cannot change His Majesty's decision. I only hope that you can be more comfortable. Shen Miao said, What matter does your Majesty want to do? Empress Xianda was about to speak when a charming female voice came from behind her. Jie is in a good mood today. You actually came to stroll in the imperial garden. Shan Miao and the Empress turned their heads at the same time and saw that from the other side of the garden, a few palace maids were escorting a female in palace attire as they walked out. This female was dressed in silver, vermilion, purple and gold with a group of phoenixes and an agate jade necklace on her head. It was the height of spring and her dressing was even more gorgeous than the spring sun. When he got closer, he found that this woman was also beautiful, but he didn't know if it was because of her gorgeous attire that made her seem a little impetuous. She came over and bewitchingly bowed to Empress Xianda but had a somewhat indifferent look, as if she did not place Empress Xianda in her eyes. Oh, so it is Consort Jing's younger sister. Empress Xianda replied in an indifferent manner. Chapter 888. Shen Miao pondered. This imperial concubine Jing looked to be in her early 20s, but she could be called a concubine. Either her family was very prominent, or she was very favored. But Shen Miao felt that compared to Empress Xianda, other than being younger and more beautiful, this imperial concubine Jing's temperament was much less than Empress Xianda's. She really couldn't see how she was worthy of Emperor Yongl's favor. That imperial concubine Jing seemed to have just noticed Shen Miao and asked, "This one is very unfamiliar. Which Fu's foreign is she?" Shen Miao was now dressed as a married woman and combed her hair. Because of this, even though her face was tender, no one would think that she was an unmarried young miss of an official's family. "This is Prince Rui's foreign, Rui Qinhuang Fei." Empress Xianda didn't seem to want to introduce Shan Miao to imperial concubine Jing, and said simply. When she said this, imperial concubine Jing's expression changed. When she heard this, she first called out in surprise, "Rui Qinhuang Fei?" Then she examined Shen Miao from top to bottom. Unlike Emperor Yongla's sharp examination, not to mention Empress Xianda's kind observation, this one's gaze was very rude, as though she was examining something. After she finished looking, she snorted and said in a neutral tone, "Originally, I thought that you were a great beauty that would make Rui Qinhuang travel thousands of miles to marry you back to Deliang. Now," she smiled harshly, "it's probably my eyes that are not good. I really can't see anything special." Shen Miao didn't know what relationship she had with this one, so she was cautious and didn't speak. Empress Xianda's expression became cold. She said, "There are very few people that imperial concubine Jing can see as special." Shen Miao was surprised that Empress Xianda would get angry at imperial concubine Jing for her. She also felt that this Empress Xianda was similar to Emperor Yongla. But Empress Xianda's mocking words didn't have any effect. She didn't know if imperial concubine Jing understood. Imperial concubine Jing looked at Shen Miao and suddenly smiled, saying, "It seems that Jie has a good relationship with Rui Qinhuang Fei, and came to visit the garden together. I wonder if Jie is whispering something to Rui Qinhuang Fei? You should say something. Rui Qinhuang Fei has just arrived and doesn't know many things." Shen Miao looked at concubine Jing. Concubine Jing chuckled and said, "That makes sense. Lord Rui is so busy every day. How could he have time to talk about the great Liang with consort Rui? Speaking of which, a few days ago, my fourth sister asked when His Highness Lord Rui would come back. She said that she had learned a piece of music and wanted His Highness Lord Rui to give her some pointers." Xianda Empress said angrily, "Jing Fei." Realization dawned on Shen Miao. She was wondering why concubine Jing would target her for no reason. So that was the reason. Thinking of how Xie Jingxing was liked by the ladies in Mingqi in Deliang, with the identity of the Rui king, there would be endless girls. Now that she had just arrived, she was already hated by others. Concubine Jing looked at Shen Miao with a smile and said, "If consort Rui has nothing to do, you can invite my fourth sister to the manor. My fourth sister likes to make friends. If consort Rui has nothing to do, it's good to have more sisters." Multiple sisters? Shen Miao sneered in her heart. It was more like having more sisters in the inner courtyard. She originally wanted to deal with it lightly, but when her eyes landed on the white jade thumb ring that Xie Jingxing put on for her, Shen Miao suddenly changed her mind. She smiled and said, "I'm afraid that won't do." Concubine Jing was stunned and Xianda Empress was also stunned. She didn't think that Shen Miao would say that. "His Highness has handed over everything in the Rui King's manor to me to manage, from the large silver to the small business, the servants and guards. I'm so busy that I'm afraid there won't be time to entertain guests. Shun Miao smiled gently and seemed to be slightly apologetic. This subject's wife is a newcomer and His Highness trusts this subject's wife. This subject's wife doesn't dare to disappoint. Fourth mislikes, you can go and find His Highness. This subject's wife doesn't have the time. Chapter 889. These words made Jing Fei speechless, but there was a ball of fire in her heart. Shun Miao's words looked warm and gentle, saying that she did not have time to accompany guests, but in fact it was a blatant show-off. Look, Prince Rui doted on her so much that he let Shun Miao take care of everything in the prince residence. This was naturally because the prince residence only had Shun Miao as a female master, but if he did not dote on one person, there was no need to hand over all the shops, servants and guards to her, right? If this went on, it would be better to say that Rui Wangfei was also managing Prince Rui. Rui Wangfei was using different ways to show off how high her position in the prince residence was. Shun Miao was busy with official matters and secretly trampled on Jing Fei's fourth younger sister. She had nothing to do all day and ran to other people's residence to cause trouble. It was really not considered as virtuous. The corner of Empress Xianda's lips slightly rose. Jing Fei was so angry that her face turned green. But Shun Miao usually did not make enemies with others, especially when she was unfamiliar with the place and people. It was just that at this time Jing Fei provoked the anger in her heart, and if she did not fiercely turn the tables, wouldn't everyone be able to step on her head in the future? The timing, location and people were all right, and there was also Xie Jingxing supporting her from behind. If she were to give way, she would be a fool. Shun Miao smiled gently. One heard that a kind-hearted female would be the most sympathetic. Jing Fei is so worried that this official's wife would be lonely, and want to find sisters to accompany this official's wife. One think that you would feel the same way. Most likely that Jing Fei would also have lonely times. It would be better to find a few sisters to sit in the palace in the future. That way Jing Fei would be much happier. Jing Fei was so angry that she almost could not breathe. Shun Miao's words were right. Jing Fei wanted Shun Miao to invite her fourth younger sister to sit in the residence, and wanted her to have more sisters in the inner courtyard. Shun Miao was also a clever person and immediately returned the favor, and let Jing Fei have a few more sisters in the palace. Jing Fei gritted her teeth in hatred. She was in the prime of her youth, but a few years had passed. There were so many beauties that entered the palace every year, and the favor of the emperor was the most precious. If there were a few more sisters that could cause the downfall of nations, how would she live? This Rui Wangfei has such a sharp mouth. Empress Xianda smiled and said, so Jing Fei Mimi is lonely. This is easy to handle. Tomorrow, I will mention to His Majesty that the palace is a bit quiet these days. It's time to add a few new sisters. Jing Fei instantly panicked and said, not lonely, I'm not lonely. Empress Xianda's position as the empress was stable. It naturally didn't matter to her if there were a few more sisters. But Jing Fei was at a time when she was favored. It was terrifying that she would be divided. Shun Miao was grateful that Empress Xianda pushed the boat with the current. Even though she knew that Empress Xianda was only saying it, she still said seriously, Consort Jing should not decline. Since one is considerate towards this subject's wife, this subject's wife should return the favor. She said it as if Consort Jing should thank her. Someone's chuckle came from not too far away. The few of them turned around and saw Emperor Yonglu and Xie Jingxing standing at the back of the garden. As they were hidden by the bushes, they did not notice the two of them. They did not know how long they had been listening. Emperor Yongli's expression was cold, and one could not tell if he was happy or angry. He only said blandly, Prince Rui, this wife of yours is born with a sharp tongue. In the end he was somewhat unhappy. It seemed that Shun Miao and Empress Xianda deliberately teasing Jing Fei had been heard. Jing Fei ran towards Emperor Yonglu, feeling wronged, Your Majesty. Xie Jingxing walked over and patted Shun Miao's head, as if he was praising the white tiger cub in his backyard. He said in a gratified voice, Jiao Jiao is really sensible, and knows to take the initiative to care about other people's feelings. He then swept a glance at Emperor Yonglu. Since Jing Fei wants sisters, then imperial older brother should comply. It is not like the palace cannot afford to raise idle people. When Jing Fei heard this, her heart was anxious and flustered. She bit her lips as she looked at Emperor Yonglu, putting on a pitiful appearance. Shen Miao wanted to laugh. Jing Fei came brandishing her claws but was a brainless one. Now it seemed like they were ganging up to bully Jing Fei. She did not know why Emperor Yonglu would support such a woman. Emperor Yonglu said, "Since when do you have to care about Zhan's matters? Isn't Imperial older brothers Fei also managing this subject's Wang Fei?" Xie Jingxing raised an eyebrow as he looked at Jing Fei. He was born handsome and romantic, always smiling lazily. The womenfolk in the palace also liked his romantic appearance, but in their hearts, they all knew that this Prince Rui was not someone to be trifled with. His gaze was sharp and his tone was calm, but it made people feel cold. He said, "Jing Fei, are you sure you want Bin Wang to listen to your fourth sister play?" Jing Fei shivered. Chapter 890. This consort Jing was used to being tyrannical in the palace, and even though she was arrogant and brainless, no one dared to touch her. Even Empress Xianda was too lazy to bother with her. Today she did not expect that she would stumble at Shen Miao's hands, or rather, she stumbled at Prince Rui's hands. No matter how eloquent Shen Miao was, Consort Jing had the ability to punish her, even if it was just to find a crime. But Prince Rui was not someone that she could afford to offend. When Prince Rui just came to Longyi, the officials in the court were all against it and tried to trip him up. Everyone looked at his mischievous and lazy appearance and thought that he was just a devil incarnate. Who knew that in just 2 years, the officials could not wait to avoid him, like a mouse seeing a cat, and did not dare to provoke him. Consort Jing's father also warned her not to be enemies with Prince Rui. No matter how arrogant Consort Jing was, she would not dare to go against Prince Rui. Even Emperor Yonglu could not do anything to Prince Rui, much less her and consort. She forced a smile. "Your Highness, Prince Rui is very busy, and would not have the time to listen to fourth younger sisters playing." She then looked towards Emperor Yonglu with a pleading gaze. "This consort will teach fourth younger sister in the future. Your Highness, Prince Rui must not mind." "This prince does not have the time to mind." Xie Jingxing smiled and held Shen Miao's shoulders. Consort also does not have the free time. If Consort Jing is free, it is better to think of sharing Imperial older brother's worries. Consort Jing bit her lips and looked awkwardly at Emperor Yonglu. Emperor Yongli's expression sank. No matter what, Xie Jingxing had repeatedly humiliated his consort, which made him unhappy. Perhaps he did not mind in the past, but now he did not wish for Xie Jingxing to stand up for Shen Miao. How could he spoil her like this? He coldly asked Shen Miao, "Consort Rui, this is also your intention?" Shen Miao meekly bowed her head. The wife follows the husband. Empress Xianda looked at Shen Miao with some surprise, as if she did not expect that Shen Miao would be so unyielding when blocking Emperor Yonglu. She suddenly thought of something and shook her head with a smile. When Emperor Yonglu heard this, he silently stared at Shen Miao for a long time. His gaze could be said to be somewhat fierce, just that Shen Miao lowered her head, not knowing if she was acting dumb or did not see it. She always looked down gently, ignoring such a gaze. Xie Jingxing directly pulled Shen Miao up and said, "If Imperial older brother does not have anything else to instruct, this younger brother will leave first." He said, "Being newly married, both of us husband and wife have many things to do." Shen Miao. Monarch Yonglu said, "Remember my words." Xie Jingxing said with a smile that was not a smile, "Oh." It was just that the word, "oh," didn't seem to mean that he took Emperor Yongli's words to heart. After Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing left, Emperor Yonglu seemed to be very unhappy. With a wave of his sleeve, he didn't even bother with Empress Xianda and Jing Fei as he left. Empress Xianda and Jing Fei knew that Emperor Yonglu was angry and didn't follow. Jing Fei looked at Empress Xianda and said, "Older sister and Consort Rui's relationship is rather good. Just now you kept on speaking for her. If one did not know, one would think that both of you already know each other. Consort Rui is knowledgeable and sensible, intelligent and virtuous. Naturally one is likable." Empress Xianda said with a smile. "But older sister must not forget that she is a Ming-Chi's person." Jing Fei said fiercely, "Who knows what Ming-Chi's people are planning to come to the Great Liang. Older sister must help her and not drag yourself into the water in the future. When His Majesty blames, even older sister will be blamed." Since one married to the Great Liang, one is a Great Liang person. Could it be that Jing Fei also suspect the residence of Prince Rui? Consort Rui and Prince Rui are husband and wife and are one body. In terms of tongues, how could Jing Fei be Empress Xianda's opponent? Chapter 891. Jing Fei sneered. Older sister still knows how to speak. It seems that you also trust Consort Rui so much. It seems that you will definitely stand on Consort Rui's side. Empress Xianda declined to comment. But what to do? Jing Fei suddenly smiled. Older sister can help her for a while but cannot help her for a lifetime. There will not only be one female in the residence of Prince Rui. Even if my fourth younger sister does not have a chance, there will always be someone who has a chance. Looking at Empress Xianda's face, Jing Fei said, His Majesty can see that he does not like that Consort Rui. Empress Xianda said, The matters of the residence of Prince Rui is not something that you and I can intervene in. Prince Rui has his own plans. Younger sister also does not dare to volunteer. Jing Fei smiled. One just want to advise older sister. Older sister is not a bodhisattva. Even if one is so kind that one would want to help, one still need to see if one has the ability. Older sister's today is Consort Rui's tomorrow. Finishing, it was as if she had gotten back her previous position as she proudly raised her head and left with the maids. The gentle smile on Empress Xianda's lips gradually sank and a trace of worry flashed in her eyes. In the carriage, Shen Miao asked, What did the emperor talk to you about? Some trivial matters of the court. Xie Jingxing said. Shen Miao knew that if it was a trivial matter, Emperor Yonglu would not specially call Xie Jingxing over to talk. Without thinking, she could guess that it must be related to her. Today Emperor Yongli's attitude had already explained that he did not like Shen Miao, and did not like Xie Jingxing to value Shen Miao. Perhaps it was because Shen Miao's identity was too sensitive, or perhaps Emperor Yonglu had a better choice. Seeing that Shen Miao did not speak, Xie Jingxing turned his head and pinched her face. But today you made me look at you in a different light. It seems that one had not seen such a fierce look for a long time. Fierce? Shen Miao asked in reply. Otherwise. Xie Jingxing sighed and said as if he was reminiscing, At the beginning in Mingqi, when I saw you in Wulong Temple, I thought that the young lady of the Shen family was really fierce. One do not know which young master would be unlucky to marry such a tigress back. Shen Miao looked at him calmly. Do you want to quarrel? Xie Jingxing's lips curled up as he said, That's right. This is how my Xie family should be. Shen Miao was interrupted by him, and the displeasure that Xie Jingxing concealed from Emperor Yongli's words disappeared. She said, It is fine if you do not tell me what the emperor told you, but what kind of person is Jing Fei? His Majesty seems to dote on her a lot, but... She deliberated over her words. I don't see anything special about her. Xie Jingxing almost laughed out. Previously Consort Jing said that Shen Miao did not look special, and now she returned it back in its original form. She really held a grudge. He said, Consort Jing is General Lu's eldest daughter. General Lu is equivalent to your Shen family's position in Mingqi. Shen family Shen is 222. 222 the Shen 22221. To Liang Shaoxing Shen Shen I Liang the Fei Fei Ming the Ming to Fei the Ming I the Xing the King. To each to Shen to Wei. 2. Liang is 22222 is. The is. Liang is. 2222. When Xie Jingxing spoke to hear, a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. Looking at Fei Jing's attitude in the inner palace, one would know what kind of attitude the Lu family has in Longyi. Shen Miao said. The women in the inner palace did not just represent a single woman. They also maintained the family's reputation and strength. The women in the harem often represented more than just a woman. They also maintained the reputation and strength of a family. The women in the inner palace represented more than just a woman. They also maintained the family's reputation and strength. It would not be enough to just rely on pampering. Just like her in the previous lifetime, if not for the Shen family behind her, Fu Xiui would not even take a look at her. The reason why Mei Foran could give birth to Fu Shang, who was close to the crown prince, other than Mei Foran's own means, it was also because of her brilliant and outstanding brother who earned a lot of meritorious services. Chapter 892. Thinking of Mei Foran, Shen Miao was suddenly startled. In the previous lifetime, Mei Foran appeared after Fu Xiuyi ascended the throne a few years later when she went to the Qin country. In this lifetime, one did not know if Fu Xiuyi would go on an expedition to the east, but Shen Miao had already come to the Great Liang. Would Mei Foran still appear? Xie Jingxing did not notice that Shen Miao was distracted and praised. Not bad. Jing Fei is arrogant and the Lu family is arrogant. Imperial Xiong has the intention to suppress them, but he has to take it slow. Is there no checks and balances? Shen Miao asked. Xie Jingxing shook his head. The Lu family is the late emperor's people. The remaining people of the late emperor have already been cleaned up by imperial older brother. Other than these two families, there was also the military general Lu family, and the civil official Yi family. The Lu and Yi families had deep foundations and many henchmen. If they were to be uprooted, it would only hurt the royal family's foundation. Imperial brother, you can't be too hasty. They also know this, which is why they dare to be so fearless. Shen Miao frowned. Xie Jingxing and Emperor Yonglu were biological brothers, and the late emperor was their biological father. Why did Xie Jingxing call him late emperor and not imperial father? Moreover, like what Xie Jingxing said, the Lu and Yi families were the people of the late emperor. Even though it was a change of ruler and a change of courtiers, but Emperor Yonglu was the legitimate successor to the throne, and these two generations of elders should do their best to support him. Why was it that the Lu and Yi families were so ambitious and Emperor Yonglu had the intention to suppress them? Could it be that the late emperor was unwilling to see Emperor Yonglu rule the country? Or did the Lu and Yi families become disloyal after the death of the late emperor? Shen Miao was sensitive to some secret matters. Suddenly he felt that it was somewhat ridiculous. In Mingqi, the Shen and Xie families were honest and dutiful, but the imperial family was suspicious, and even if the Shen and Xie families did not have any daughters in the palace, the imperial family still tried their best to suppress them. When they arrived at Great Liang, the situation was completely reversed. The treacherous officials were arrogant, but the imperial family had no choice but to compromise and slowly plan. Which family does the Empress belong to? Shen Miao asked. It is the Ku family. Xie Jingxing said. The Ku family is a historian. Shen Miao was surprised for a moment. Official historian. Official historian has light authority and no real power. The emperor is willing to marry official historian's family's young lady, and even made her the empress. It is evident that he loves the empress very much. Xie Jingxing declined to comment. But, she then said, since there is the empress in your heart, why did you allow Jing Fei to be disrespectful to the empress? Since Jing Fei dared to be disrespectful to the empress, it was clear that she was influenced by the emperor. If Emperor Yonglu loved the empress, then because of his love for the empress, no matter how arrogant Jing Fei was, she wouldn't dare to be disrespectful to the empress. But since Jing Fei dared to rudely argue with the empress, she clearly knew that Emperor Yonglu wouldn't blame her for this. Since he wasn't willing to marry her for the sake of power, why couldn't he do the simplest thing of protecting her? Xie Jingxing smiled faintly. Imperial older brother and I are different. He then caressed her head. Imperial saw, and you are also different. Shen Miao waved his hand away and said, so the fourth young lady of the Lu family is in love with you? Xie Jingxing was startled before smiling. Why are you still jealous? But there is one thing that is very strange. Shen Miao said to herself, if the Lu family want to control the court or show their ambition, they have already sent a daughter into the palace and the goal has been achieved. So why send another young lady over? Moreover, Shen Miao looked at him. Even if it was sent, why send it to you? You are only Prince Rue and not the emperor. The daughter of the Lu family would not want to control all the imperial brothers in the palm of her hand, right? She was stunned when she looked up. Xie Jingxing looked at her deeply, and she could not understand the meaning in his eyes. Before she could ask, Xie Jingxing had already pulled her to the front and his hands were around her waist. He buried his head on Shen Miao's shoulder and half-hugged her. Chapter 893. His low grumbling voice with a smile was heard by her ear. If this goes on, I will not have any secrets in front of you. Secrets? Shen Miao's heart moved. What did she say correctly? You still have secrets from me? She deliberately asked. Don't you also have secrets from me? Xie Jingxing said. She paused and Xie Jingxing let go of his hand and stared at her eyes. His lips hooked up but his eyes were firmly locked onto her, making her somewhat breathless. He said, how about exchanging my secret to exchange for your secret? Shen Miao's heart fiercely shook but she quickly reacted and turned her head away. I do not want to know your secret. Xie Jingxing made an "oh" sound and smiled. Anyway, you have the ability to find it yourself, right? Shen Miao turned her head back and looked at him without saying a word. Xie Jingxing lazily said, my secret? You have the ability to find it yourself. Your secret? Do you think that I do not know? Shen Miao was somewhat flustered in a moment. She had a secret from her previous lifetime. But she did not have the courage to say it to anyone. Even if it was Shen Qiu, Shen Xian or Luo Shuiyan, she still kept silent and did not dare to reveal a trace of it. Not to mention the matter of the strange powers and gods, others would think that she was crazy. She was only afraid that no one would believe it if she said it, and was even more afraid that others would look at her with a strange gaze. Would they blame her if she was too stupid and cowardly, causing the death of her own children and family? Shen Miao did not dare to try. Then if Xie Jingxing knew that she had married before and became Fu Xiuyi's wife, and had contributed to Fu Xiuyi's empire, how would he look at her? Shen Miao once thought that she did not care how others looked at her. But at this moment she suddenly felt some fear. She did not want Xie Jingxing to look at her like an enemy. Her strange expression was seen by Xie Jingxing. Xie Jingxing's eyes deepened but he sighed softly and hugged her again. I do not like to be forced. If you do not want others to know, I will not ask, he said. But do not let me wait for too long. After returning to the residence of Prince Rui, Xie Jingxing quickly went out again. He always had a lot of things so Shen Miao did not question further. Now she was not even clear about the layout of the Great Liang, and after Xie Jingxing explained to her about the Lu and Yi families in the carriage, it made her realize that there was no difference between the Great Liang and Mingqi. Although on the surface it seemed that the country was prosperous and the people were strong and peaceful, but hidden under the peace, there were probably more undercurrents surging. Because the Great Liang's country was bigger, correspondingly, the ambition of the people below was also bigger. After all, Emperor Yonglu and Xie Jingxing's attitude towards their father was also very strange. There seemed to be a lot of origins involved in this. Shen Miao remembered that when she first met Xie Jingxing and Mingqi, Xie Jingxing seemed to be searching for something several times. When she was in the general's mansion, she even happened to see the fire she threw in the ancestral hall. In the secret chamber of Prince Yu residence, Xie Jingxing and Gao Yang seemed to have obtained something. But what was that thing? Shen Miao originally thought that it was the military defense map, but thinking that the military defense map would most likely not be placed in the general's residence and Prince Yu residence's secret chamber, as for what it was, she did not know. As she thought about it, she thought of another matter. Pei Lang followed Xie Jingxing's troops all the way to the Great Liang, and the main reason for him to come to the Great Liang was to avoid Fu Xiuyi's pursuit. Luing was also brought along. Luing was easy to settle, but Pei Lang, even though Pei Lang looked modest, he was actually proud and arrogant. Originally it was because of Luing that he worked for her, but after being suspected by Fu Xiuyi, he risked his life to protect her. This made Shen Miao have no other reason to ask Pei Lang to do anything for her. Chapter 894. Finally, Shen Miao stood up and walked out of the room, deciding to talk to Pei Lang face to face. Pei Lang's room was arranged in the last room on the east side of the residence of Prince Rui, and the environment was not bad. The residence of Prince Rui was very big and it was not difficult to make room for a courtyard. Thus Pei Lang's treatment was not bad. It was just that one did not know if it was intentional or unintentional, but it was opposite to Shen Miao's place and became the furthest distance in the entire residence of Prince Rui. When Shen Miao came to Pei Lang's courtyard, Pei Lang was sitting in the courtyard playing chess and beside him stood two green-clad maids. Both of them were beautiful like the moon and the flowers. Both of them were pouring tea for Pei Lang from time to time, and their eyes would occasionally land on Pei Lang. Even though it was restrained, there was an inexplicable feeling flowing in their eyes. When this scene fell into Shen Miao's eyes, she felt that it was very strange. She stopped her footsteps and looked at it from afar, but her mind was thinking about the matters of the past lifetime. In the past lifetime, Pei Lang had unlimited talent, and after Fu Xiaoyi ascended to the throne, he supported him to be the country's tutor. Pei Lang himself was also handsome and proud and would often wear a green robe. He had a modest and aloof look and indeed had some sage-like demeanor. The officials knew that he was deeply trusted by Fu Xiaoyi and did not dare to be enemies with him. In the entire Mingqi, Pei Lang was considered to be very famous. But he was also very young and looked very good. Fu Xiaoyi once tried to bestow a minister's daughter to him as a wife but was tactfully declined by Pei Lang. Such a talented person most likely had his own temperament and was a sentimental person. Fu Xiaoyi thought that Pei Lang would not like to be arranged by others and thus followed him. Before Shen Miao went to the Qin country to be a hostage, her relationship with Pei Lang was not bad, and she once asked him if he had a young lady that he admired. At that time, how did Pei Lang answer? Shen Miao's expression was somewhat absent-minded. Pei Lang said, "Your ladyship, this official's ambition is not here." These 4 words "not here" seemed to be the opposite of the south and the north, but in fact it clearly showed some of Pei Lang's attitude. Pei Lang's temperament was very rational, so rational that when he helped Fu Xiaoyi to make a decision, he would eliminate any possibility of emotions to ensure that there would not be any accidents in the outcome. Speaking of which, until Shen Miao died in the past lifetime, Pei Lang was always alone and there was no news of any young lady that he admired. Now that Pei Lang was standing with the 2 females, Shen Miao was somewhat absent-minded. Even when he was in Guangwentang, Pei Lang relied on his charm to attract a group of female students. Now that his age was just right, it made people think more. As Shen Miao was thinking like this, the maid beside Pei Lang, who was fanning the butterflies and flying insects, saw Shen Miao and was first startled before quickly bowing. "This servant greets Wang Fei." The other maidservant in green also hurriedly bowed. Pei Lang raised his head and saw Shen Miao. Shen Miao smiled as she walked over and said to the 2 green-clad maids, "Both of you can leave." The maidservants looked at Pei Lang with some difficulty. Pei Lang waved his hand, and the 2 maidservants retreated. Shen Miao looked at the back of the 2 graceful figures and a rare mischievous feeling rose up in her heart towards Pei Lang. She asked, "It is rare to see gentleman Pei being so romantic. One can add fragrance to one's red sleeves." The 2 maids looked at Pei Lang with unconcealable admiration in their eyes. Pei Lang shook his head and smiled bitterly, but did not refute. One had to bow one's head under the eaves. These 2 maids were sent by the residents of Prince Rui, and if it was in the past, Pei Lang would definitely think of ways to get rid of these undisguised servants and would not keep them by his side. But this was not Mingqi, and the other party were not his servants, and he did not know if it was Xie Jingxing's idea. No matter how much he did not like it, Pei Lang could only endure it. Chapter 895. It was just that seeing that Shen Miao did not seem to be affected at all, Pei Lang could not help but feel a slight sourness in his heart. Teacher, following me to Great Liang was an action of helplessness. Shen Miao said. Now it has become a situation of neither up nor down. What plans do you have in the future? She paused for a moment. In the beginning, regarding Lu Ying's matter, it was I who forced teacher to do it. Teacher had no other choice and implicated teacher to leave one's hometown. Teacher is really guilty. If teacher wants to leave, it is also possible. Hearing that, Pei Lang looked at Shen Miao with some surprise. All along when Shen Miao faced him, she had a feeling of being in the right, and from the beginning when she used Lu Ying to threaten Pei Lang had faintly sensed that Shen Miao had some kind of subtle feeling towards him. It was like hostility, but it was not only hostility. Pei Lang had also investigated carefully due to his doubts, but at the end he still did not know anything. But now that Shen Miao was facing him, there was no hostility. It was as if she had let go of something. It was very peaceful, but it made Pei Lang somewhat disappointed and frustrated. It was as if something special had vanished with Shen Miao putting it down. Shen Miao looked at Pei Lang and her heart was somewhat moved. She had always defined Pei Lang as a person who owed her a lot, but on that day when Xie Jingxing said that Pei Lang was locked up in Fu Xiaoyi's dungeon, and was tortured but did not confess that she was the person behind the scenes, her view of some matters was different. Shen Miao knew how Fu Xiaoyi punished the traitors, and in that situation, Pei Lang did not confess her identity, Thus Shun Miao could not say what kind of feeling she had. Now thinking about it, the reason why she hated Pei Lang and had so much resentment towards Pei Lang was because Pei Lang had always stood on Fu Xiuyi's side. And when Fu Xiuyi dealt with their Shin family, Pei Lang chose to look on with folded arms. Even when the crown prince was deposed, he did not say a single word for Fu Ming and did not attempt to stop Wan Yu's marriage. But in this world it was sentiment for someone to help you, and it was one's duty to not help you. Pei Lang's relationship with her, no matter what, had not reached the point of must help. As for this lifetime, Pei Lang was no longer Fu Xiuyi's people and even became enemies with Fu Xiuyi, so there was no reason for him to seek shelter. Thus there was no need to persevere with those unreconciled feelings. In the end, one had to rely on oneself for revenge. Pure hatred and resentment were of no use. Pei Lang suppressed the disappointment in his heart and said, "What plans do you have for the future?" Shin Miao was startled. Me? Pei Lang's eyes became clear again, as if he had returned to that incomparably vigilant nation tutor. He said, "The location of the residence of Prince Rui seems to not be as invincible as it looks on the surface. I think there are some variables in the Great Liang imperial family." He looked at Shan Miao. "Even if the imperial family of the Great Liang has nothing to do with me, and the residents of Prince Rui also have ways to protect themselves, but your road might not be smooth." Shin Miao frowned slightly. "It's true. Sir, when you talk about this, I can lend you a hand," Pei Lang said. Shin Miao, "Sir. Although I can't be considered a genius, I can still do what I can. Lu Ying and I are currently relying on you to gain a foothold in the Great Liang. Only when you live better and your footsteps are more stable would we be able to live better. Even for my own sake, I must help you. I want to stay in the residence of Prince Rui." He paused for a moment. "If I can also participate in the Great Liang's matters, or some of your matters for me to give advice, perhaps it would be better." After being silent for a long time, Shin Miao then said, "Sir Pei, you better think it through. You do not owe me anything, so there is no need to tie your life with mine. There is no need to rely on me. Based on your abilities, you can also live well. Not to mention those excuses, you are not a person who chases after fame and fortune." Pei Lang smiled bitterly in his heart. Shin Miao seemed to understand him very well, even more than he understood himself. Even he himself did not know when he had this inexplicable obsession, but he stubbornly did not want to draw a clear line with her. He said, "My choice is this." Shin Miao took a deep breath, and just as she was about to speak, she saw Jingzhe walking in from outside. One did not know where she took out a beautifully decorated invitation. "Foreign Kaixia banquet invitation has been sent over, saying that it is Prince Rui's consort. This servant will receive this invitation. Foreign can take a look." Shen Miao just came to the Great Liang, and someone came to send an invitation. This was her first time appearing in the circle of Long Ye's noble furence, so it was obvious that the other party had ulterior motives. She asked, "Who sent the invitation?" "Long Ye's general pavilion. Lu Foreign sent it." Shen Miao's movements paused. The Wenyi family and the Wu Lu family, the two great aristocratic families of the Great Liang, seemed to have a very subtle relationship with the imperial family. It was indeed an unkind intention. Chapter 896. That night, Xie Jingxing returned and Shen Miao told Xie Jingxing about the invitation. Xie Jingxing then told Shen Miao that if she did not want to go, she could decline. Even though the Lu and Yi families were arrogant, they did not dare to shed all pretense of cordiality with the residents of Prince Rui. In other words, Shen Miao had the right to refuse. Even though she said it like that, Shen Miao did not want to refuse. Know yourself and know the enemy, and you will be victorious in 100 battles. Currently she knew nothing about the situation of the Great Liang, and could take this opportunity to understand more. Putting aside the Yi family, the Lu family's intentions towards her could be seen clearly from this incident. Xie Jingxing naturally would not stop Shen Miao's decision. After the husband and wife discussed for a while, Shen Miao got someone to reply to the invitation saying that she would be punctual for the appointment. 2 days later, it was the day of the Caixia banquet. Shen Miao woke up early, and when she was eating, Xie Jingxing was no longer in the residence. It seemed that after returning to the Great Liang, he was very busy every day and would leave early in the day and return home at night. This imperial city was not as peaceful as it looked on the surface, and Shan Miao deeply agreed. Jingzhe combed Shan Miao's hair. After she came to the residence of Prince Rui for convenience, she still used her own personal maid. Speaking of which, there were very few women in the prince's fu. Other than the kitchen maids and a few nannies, the rest were all men. Heard from Uncle Tang that after Xie Jingxing returned to the Great Liang 2 years ago and was conferred the title of Qinwang, he had caught a few spies dressed as maids in the Qinwang residence. He probably felt that the more women there were, the more trouble there would be, and the easier it would be for people with bad intentions to take advantage of them. In the end, the entire prince's residence simply stopped adding more women. However, it was precisely because of this that the prince's mansion was like an impenetrable fortress. For so long, the people outside were jealous and envious, but they couldn't find an exit. Guyu said, "This is Foreign's first time attending a banquet in Longyi, so one must dress up beautifully." When others see Foreign like this, they would not say anything more, and Foreign would definitely give our Ming-Chi face. In Longyi, Xie Jingxing was considered to be very awe-inspiring. When Jingzhe and Guyu went out to buy things, they heard people discussing that it was Shan Miao who had accumulated good fortune in her previous life that she was able to marry Prince Rui in this lifetime. Jingzhe and Guyu were extremely unconvinced when they heard it. How was their family's young lady bad? Even in Ming-Chi's Ding capital, she was one of the top young ladies. Not to mention that she was intelligent, her temperament was also kind, and her bearing was not inferior to a princess. How could it be said that she was climbing up? However, one's mouth could not win against others, so one might as well use facts to slap one's face. Guyu thought that this time when Shan Miao went to shock everyone, those people would no longer make irresponsible remarks. "Why do you mind that?" Shan Miao laughed in spite of herself. "They said that it was to make their hearts feel better and would not affect us." For in what Guyu said is right. Jingzhe was picking hairpins for Shan Miao from the jewelry box as she said, "The limelight cannot fall below others." Just as they were speaking, one heard Uncle Tang knocking on the door from outside. Shan Miao motioned for him to come in and saw a young female following behind Uncle Tang. She looked to be younger than Shan Miao and was slightly plump. Most likely it was because of her young age, but she was extremely likable with a pair of smiling eyes, and her lips were wide open, white and tender. In a moment, Shan Miao thought of Su Ming Lang. But it was a female. "Today Foreign is going to Kaixia's banquet." Uncle Tang smiled. Young master had instructed to find a familiar person for Foreign to give pointers. This old servant went to bring Ba Jiao young lady over. Foreign will bring Ba Jiao young lady along as a maid so that if one were to meet an unknown person, Ba Jiao young lady would explain to you. Shan Miao smiled, thanking Uncle Tang. Chapter 897. Uncle Tang repeatedly waved his hands and said that he did not dare and only smiled. Initially thought that Foreign would not accept the invitation, but did not expect that Foreign would accept it. Foreign has such courage. This old servant admires. When an ordinary person came to a completely unfamiliar place, their heart would always be a little timid. Not to mention an official's young lady, even if it was a courageous person when one just arrived, one would need a lot of courage to go to a place full of strangers when one was not familiar with the environment. Moreover, one knew that the other party's intention was not good. "Just going to eat tea and chat," Shan Miao said lightly. "There is no need for courage." Uncle Tang nodded his head. Exactly. Exactly. His gaze towards Shan Miao was more satisfied. He gave a few more instructions before retreating. Shan Miao looked at this octagonal Anise. Octagonal Anise stood upright and looked at her with a smile. This kind of expression was somewhat silly but made one feel that it was very cute. Today Shan Miao went to the Kaixia banquet, and it was indeed strenuous without anyone to guide her. If there was someone to explain by the side, it would save a lot of effort. Xie Jingxing was thoughtful and Shan Miao smiled gently. Suddenly she thought of Shan Miao and looked at octagonal Anise before asking, "It is not that there are no maids in the residence of the prince of first rank. You, other than the kitchen maids and a few moms, there were only manservants and guards in the residence of the prince of first rank, and there were no maids." Thus Shan Miao brought along Jingzhe, Guyu and the rest, and almost became the most popular people in the residence of the prince of first rank. Octagonal Anise smiled. "This servant is not a maid of the residence of the prince of first rank." This servant is from the MOU army, and was specially transferred over to accompany Furin. MOU army? Shen Miao was surprised for a moment. She had heard Xie Jingxing vaguely mention it before. When they were in Mingqi, this army had helped Xie Jingxing to do many things. It seemed that Xie Jingxing had privately raised these troops and seemed to be extremely powerful. But since Xie Jingxing dared to let them act so boldly, one think that Emperor Yonglu was not ignorant. She asked, "Do you know martial arts?" "This servant knows how to kill." Octagonal Anise answered with a smile. Jingzhe and Guyu both sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard it. It was true that one cannot judge a book by its cover. This smiling Su Minglang, who looked like a grown-up female, was actually an expert in killing people. Shen Miao was satisfied. She thought that Xie Jingxing was really a bad person. He gave the octagonal anise to her, and let her go to the Kaixia banquet. In other words, at least in terms of martial arts, she would not be at a disadvantage. Shen Miao said, "Since that is the case, then follow me. Jingzhe will stay in the residence and tidy up the storeroom with Bai Lu and Shuangjiang. Guyu, you and Ba Jiao will set off with me." Jingzhe was almost done packing but was told that she could not go. She felt wronged and was quite dissatisfied with octagonal Anise. However, she was afraid that octagonal Anise would kill her in a fit of anger. She reluctantly told octagonal Anise to take good care of Shen Miao before leaving. When everything was ready, Shen Miao boarded the horse carriage and rushed to the Kaixia banquet venue, the Lu residence. This time Shen Miao did not bring Mo Qing along. The guards that she brought along were all from the residence of Prince Rui. Naturally she had her considerations. Mo Qing was after all a Mingqi's person, but with the people from the residence of Prince Rui, it would make the other party somewhat fearful and would not easily make a move. It was just that one's mouth was happy and Shen Miao was the one who was least afraid of arguing with others. Longyi was different from the Ding capital. The territory of the Great Liang was closer to the east and was more sunny. Even the winter days were not as cold as the Ding capital, much less the summer. Now it was May, and if it was in the Ding capital, it would still be spring, but in Longyi, it was already the beginning of summer and there was a slight heat. As the horse carriage traveled, Shen Miao and Guyu lifted the curtains a little to look outside. When they saw that the streets of Longyi were really bustling with people and carriages, their hearts sighed with emotion. Chapter 898. It was no wonder that the common people of the small country that was attacked would open the city gates to welcome them. If one could bring good days to the people of the world, then what was the name of the country? To the common people it was a distant matter. Emperor Yonglu was indeed a talent in governing the world. After traveling for almost an hour, the horse carriage finally stopped. Ba Jiao lifted the curtain to take a look and said, "Furin, we have arrived at the Lu residence." Guyu and Ba Jiao helped Shen Miao down the horse carriage and saw that there were many horse carriages parked at the entrance of the Lu residence, but there was not a single person at the entrance to welcome them. Guyu was stunned and said, Why is there no one here to welcome? Could it be that we went the wrong way?" It was said that they went the wrong way, but it did not look like they went the wrong way because the main doors of the Lu residence were not closed, as if it was specially left open for her. Shen Miao swept a glance at the door and had some thoughts in her heart. She asked Guyu, "What is the time on the invitation for the Kaixia banquet?" Guyu quickly took out the invitation from her sleeves and opened it. "It is the sea hour." "It is not the sea hour yet. It seems that only the invitation to us is like this," Shen Miao said lightly. Guyu said, "Furin, what is the meaning of this?" "There are horse carriages in front of the door, and it is obvious that there are guests here. Even if they came earlier, there should not be so many. There is no one at the door to welcome them, but they stayed for us, knowing that we would definitely come. If I guess correctly, the time on other people's invitation must be the sea hour, but on our invitation it is the sea hour. This is to deliberately let us come late." Finishing, she laughed in her heart. It seemed that no matter if it was Mingqi or Great Liang, these noble foreign's methods were always the same. Ba Jiao was still smiling, but Guyu was suddenly enlightened and said angrily, "But what benefits is there for them to tease young lady like this? They are going too far." "Benefits?" Shen Miao's voice turned slightly cold. "There are many benefits. It is rude to enter without anyone's invitation, and they will say that the Shen family is presumptuous. If he didn't enter, he would have been disrespectful. If he left halfway after taking the invitation, he would have gone back on his words. The reason lies with them. They've been caught in the wrong. From the beginning they've lowered their heads, but as time goes on, they're nothing more than a joke. Fighting with others was also a form of knowledge, and one must not be caught at the beginning, otherwise one would be lowering one's head. She and Mei Foreign had fought for so many years and understood this point. Octagonal Anise asked, "Madam, do you still want to go in? Come in." Shun Miao lifted her skirt and was about to walk in. "But Foreign," Guyu asked doubtfully, "if one were to go in, one would be caught at the wrong place, and it is also wrong not to enter. Advancing and retreating are both wrong, so why do one still want to go in? Then let others make bigger mistakes than you." Shun Miao smiled. "That way no one will care about your mistakes." In the Lu manor, the atmosphere in the hall was very harmonious. As a very famous general of Longyi, the Lu family's status was extremely high. Thus, their mansion was also large and luxurious. Today's Kaixia banquet was personally organized by Lu Foreign, and the compliments were endless. Lu Foreign was in her early 40s, and most likely when she was young, she was a budding beauty, but when she was old, she looked thin and mean, losing some of her dignified air. Even so, she was still dressed very luxuriously, as if this would add a little bit of brilliance to her. It was just that as a female, when one was older, wearing unsuitable bright clothes, not only did it not make her look better, but it would undoubtedly expose the shortcomings of her old age. Lu Foreign is really blessed. A round-faced Foreign said with a smile. Imperial concubine Jean is doted on by His Majesty in the palace, and Imperial concubine Jean is so filial to you. For this Kaixia banquet, His Majesty specially sent gifts. This is enough to see the weight of Imperial concubine Jean in His Majesty's heart. Chapter 899. Lu Foreign's heart was proud, but her face was still modest. "It is all because of the Emperor's magnanimity that he took pity on Consort Jing so that our entire family could bask in the light." "What is Foreign saying?" The other short Foreign smiled. "Consort Jing has gained favor, and the residence's second young lady has married to a military officer. One heard that she is pregnant with twins. One must let us bask in the good fortune." Lu Foreign shook her head and said with a face of a headache, "Is there not still number 3 and 4th lady? These two are really giving me a headache." The round-faced Foreign quickly called out exaggeratedly, "Foreign still has a headache. Third young master is a talented person and has outstanding martial arts at such a young age. One do not know which young lady would have the good fortune to marry him in the future. As for 4th lady, there is no need to talk about her. She is like an immortal and is proficient in the 4 arts. Is there a need to worry about this? Foreign is overpraising." Lu Foreign shook her head and smiled bitterly. "Forget about number 3. It is understandable for males to train for a few years, but 4th lady's marriage cannot be delayed. Now it really gives me a headache, mother. You are making things up about me in front of other Furins again." A delicate female voice suddenly rang out. Everyone turned around and saw a young girl in the middle of the hall. This girl looked to be about 16 or 17 years old. She was wearing a light purple dress embroidered with butterfly patterns and 100 birds, and a cherry-colored lotus dress with a simple silk vest. Her hair was in a bun with a butterfly-shaped pearl hairpin. This young female was born to be charming and moving, and in addition to living like a princess, she had the natural brilliance of a rich young lady. With the red hairpin surrounding her, she suddenly looked radiant, as if she was a graceful butterfly fairy in the spring, and was very eye-catching. This was the 4th young lady of the Lu family, Consort Jing's 4th younger sister, Lu Wan. Lu Foreign touched her head in pain. "How would I dare to make things up about our young lady Wan?" Lu Wan pursed her lips and no longer spoke. She stood in the hall, and there were other young ladies of official families in the hall, but compared to her, they seemed dull. Lu Wan's expression was arrogant as she looked around and said, "Why is that Ming Qi's young lady Shen not here?" Her voice was not low, and all the Furins and young ladies in the hall heard it and started whispering. Lu Wan addressed Shun Miao as young lady of the Shen family of Ming Qi, but refused to address her as Consort Rui. This explained a lot of problems. In the beginning, everyone said that the 4th young lady of the Lu family was going to marry into the residence of Prince Rui to be a Qin Wang Fei. Lu Wanner was also very satisfied with Prince Rui, but who knew that Shen Miao would appear out of nowhere? The Lu family was unhappy and Lu Wanner was even more unreconciled. Today's Caixia banquet had an ulterior motive. However, most of these madams were just here to watch the show. Perhaps they still wanted to be on good terms with Lu Wanner. That young lady of the Shen family was in the limelight now, but she had no roots or foundation in Longyi. Who knew how far she could float? Prince Rui was in the prime of his youth. How long would he spend on a woman? All in all, that young lady of the Shen family did not look like she would have a good ending. Madame Lu said with a smile. Perhaps he was delayed by something on the road. She is really putting on airs, Lu Wanner said unhappily. The other foreign and young mistresses are all punctual. Only she is late. Are the rules of Mingqi dead? Just as she was speaking, one saw a young lady with a round face appearing outside. Everyone did not know when she came in. That young lady smiled. Excuse me, is this the Caixia banquet? Madame Lu was startled for a moment before smiling. Exactly. You are Prince Rui's consort? This servant is not. That smiling young lady said. The consort is here. As she spoke, she turned back and helped a young female in. Chapter 900. One did not know if it was because of the round-faced girl's contrast or because the Rui Wang Fei in everyone's imagination was too unbearable. In short, when that young female walked in, everyone was stunned for a moment. She wore a phoenix tail dress with lotus green butterflies and a white magnolia robe with purple and tassels and a bun. It could not be said to be very gorgeous, but it was definitely not simple. Longyi official family's young ladies liked to eat and dress up the most, but her outfit complemented each other and looked very tasteful. On her head was only an embroidered phoenix-shaped hair ornament. It was a neat one, but it made the entire person look luxurious. This young female had crescent moon eyebrows, clear almond eyes, a small and straight nose tip, rosy lips and extremely delicate features. She looked like a very gentle person, but her chin was slightly raised, her back was ramrod straight, and she walked over with a slight smile on her face. Every step she took made people's hearts tremble. Involuntarily, people couldn't help but look up to her, as if she was an unattainable noble. Speaking of which, it was strange that today this Rui Wang Fei and fourth Lu young lady both wore purple dresses. Fourth Lu young lady's purple was light and Rui Wang Fei's purple was deep. A young female wearing light purple would look gentle and lively, but wearing dark purple would make one feel old and stiff. But today Shen Miao's purple was like it was tailor-made for her. There was a kind of luxurious beauty that could suppress the crowd. In comparison, fourth young Miss Lu's attire was like that of an actress in a proper venue. It was somewhat unpresentable. Lu Wanner had always paid attention to this point on normal days, and had always been used to being the center of attention. She did not expect that the limelight would be snatched by others today, especially when this person was not others but Shen Miao, who had snatched her position as Rui Wang Fei. Lu Furen's eyes flashed and smiled. Wang Fei has finally arrived. Furens are all waiting for you. Shen Miao smiled gently and said unhurriedly, one did not think that Furens would come so early. That invitation stated the time and I told His Highness about it. His Highness even let me leave earlier so as to not eat. One did not think that it was still late and it is my fault. It's all His Highness's fault. He didn't remind me that I should have left earlier. It should have been 7 o'clock would have been the best. Lu Furen's heart jumped as she did not think that Shen Miao would say it out without concealing anything. Sure enough, when the words were said, the surrounding Furens looked at her differently. Shen Miao was after all an outsider. Even though those Furens in Shen Miao and the Lu family were biased towards the Lu family. But to use this kind of childish, clumsy trick was always a little ridiculous in the eyes of others. Lu Furen was also somewhat regretful. She originally wanted to give Shen Miao a show of strength, but she would not do anything to the invitation. But since Lu Wanner insisted on doing so, she could only do as she was told. Now when Shen Miao's words fell into other people's ears, they understood that these Furens' invitations were not written at the same time. Looking at the Lu family's eyes, it was always a little funny. If Shen Miao were to return and speak of this matter to Prince Rui, with Prince Rui being such an astute person, how would he not understand once he heard it? If he was dissatisfied with the Lu family because of this, Lu Furen would feel that this move was not good. Lu Wanner, however, could not see Shen Miao doing well and sized Shen Miao up before saying, "Why did Qin Wangfei not send anyone to inform and come in yourself? Don't say that we are neglectful." It was actually somewhat impolite to enter the residence without even someone to inform. Shen Miao looked at Lu Wanner and smiled. "This is exactly what I wanted to say. If your residence does not have enough manpower, there is actually no need to be so forceful. Such a big residence, but there are no guards at the door. It is really somewhat dangerous." She smiled gently. "I let the guards of the Prince of First Rank's residence guard the door so that there would not be strange people who would take advantage of the loopholes to enter." Chapter 901. When Lu Wanner and Lu Foran heard it, they almost vomited blood. What was going on? Originally they wanted to say that Shen Miao was rude, and naturally there was no one guarding the Lu residence's doors. But with Shen Miao's words, it was as if their Lu residence was so poor that they could not even afford to hire a servant to guard the door. They even let the Prince of First Rank residence's guards guard the door. If the commoners outside saw this, what would they think? Shen Miao said cordially, "Foran need not thank me. If there is any need in the future, it is possible to let His Highness send a few men over to the residence." Sending a few men, who knew if the people sent were spies or not. The residents of Prince Rui dared to send, but they did not dare to accept. The surrounding Furans also understood that this Rui Wangfei was not a soft persimmon that could be easily pinched. Originally the Lu family's arrangement was to destroy Shen Miao's prestige, and make Shen Miao make a mistake. To make a mistake and say some ambiguous words. It was enough to make this Rui Wangfei's heart lose some confidence. Who knew that until now, not only did she not fall into a disadvantageous position, she even ruthlessly attacked the Lu family. Lu Foran forced a smile and said, "Wangfei, please take a seat first." It was an inconspicuous position that was arranged for Shen Miao. Shen Miao declined to comment. She came here today not to fight over anything, and even more not to quarrel. It was just to show one's attitude and take the opportunity to see some things clearly. Octagon Anise quietly leaned over to Shen Miao's ear and said, "That round-faced Foran is the Secretary of Military Affairs Foran, Yuan Foran, and is on good terms with the Lu family. The short Foran is the Minister of Revenues Foran, Wei Foran, and his in-laws with the Yi family and has a good relationship with the Lu family. The leftmost yellow-clad Foran, Xianggong, is the left disciple of the current court. You also know her youngest son, which is young Master Ji. Ji Yushu's biological mother?" Shen Miao looked towards that Ji Foran. Ji Foran had a very dignified appearance, and seemed to have a completely different temperament from Ji Yushu. Shen Miao thought that these Furans were either rich or noble. No wonder the Lu family's influence in Longyi was not small, and imperial consort Jing was so arrogant that she did not even put Empress Xianda in her eyes. It was because one could enjoy the shade with a big tree. Since these aristocratic families had to give Lu Jia face, it was obvious that the Lu family had a lot of connections with them. If Emperor Yonglu and Xie Jingxing wanted to completely suppress the Lu clan, it would not be an easy task. The interests of the Lu family involved many other official families. If the Lu family fell, many of the families related to it would suffer a calamity. Even if it was for their own survival, those aristocratic families wouldn't just watch the Lu family fall from power. Just as she was thinking about it, a person slowly walked over and sat down beside her. Octagonal Anise immediately stood up straight and stopped explaining to Shen Miao. Shen Miao turned back, and that dainty and somewhat arrogant fourth Lu young lady was sitting beside her. Lu Wanner said, "Rui Wangfei, can I take the liberty to ask you a question?" Shen Miao said, "Please speak." "How long have you known Prince Rui?" Lu Wanner asked. Shen Miao laughed in her heart and more or less knew why this Lu Wanner came over. Speaking of which, Xie Jingxing spent his youth in Mingqi, and other than Emperor Yonglu and Xie Jingxing's own people, no one else would know about it. The people of the Great Liang only thought that Xie Jingxing had followed his master to travel around the various countries, and his whereabouts were very mysterious. Then Xie Jingxing's acquaintance with her should have started when she returned to the Ding capital from the Shaochun city, and got to know Xie Jingxing at the tribute banquet. At the very most, it was not even a year. She said, "Not even a year." Hearing this, Lu Wanner smiled. Her smile was both proud and disdainful. Lu Wanner said, "So it was not even a year. In this case, one think that Rui Wangfei still have many things that you do not understand about Prince Rui. Shen Miao smiled. Fourth young lady seems to understand His Highness very well. Do not mind. Lu Wanner said, I know your Shen family status in Mingqi, but our Lu family status in Longyi is only higher than your Shen family status in the Ding capital. Prince Rui is a very good person, and in the Great Liang, almost every young lady wants to marry into the residence of Prince Rui. However, an ordinary family background is not good enough for him. Lu Wanner took a glance at Shen Miao and said, Rui Wangfei, Prince Rui is a very ambitious person. Ever since he returned to Longyi, he started to make a big career in the court. This kind of person would not be constrained by the sentiments of a man and woman. What can you help him with? Now naturally there is deep affection, but in the future when you are no longer useful to him, he would still abandon you like a pair of worn-out shoes. Shen Miao's heart was surprised. She originally thought that Lu Wanner was an innocent and arrogant young lady who did not know anything and was only greedy for the moon in the water. But hearing her words, she discovered that this Lu Wanner could see the situation very clearly, and she even stated some of the interests. So, Shen Miao asked, His Majesty has the intention to let me be Prince Rui's pinwife, but a prince will not have two Qin Wangfei. Lu Wanner said as if it was bestowing. So you will be the concubine and I will be the wife. Chapter 902. So you will be the concubine and I will be the wife. Shen Miao looked at Lu Wanner in astonishment. She did not know where did Lu Wanner's benevolent tone come from. Originally, after listening to Lu Wanner's words, she felt that the Lu family were all intelligent and it was not fake. Now with these words, Shen Miao was somewhat unclear of Lu Wanner's background. To say such words so openly, was Lu Wanner really stupid or pretending to be stupid? If young lady Lu has the intention, you can go and explain to His Highness yourself. Shen Miao smiled gently. It is useless to say these things to me. Naturally I know. Lu Wanner looked at her with contempt. The reason why I am saying these to you today is to hope that you have self-knowledge and take the initiative to talk to His Highness the Prince of First Rank about being willing to be a concubine. Shen Miao almost laughed out. She slightly raised the corner of her lips and said, I cannot do this. What did you say? Lu Wanner's eyes widened as if she did not expect that Shen Miao would reject. Their voices were a little loud and the surrounding Furins looked over at them. Shen Miao did not hide it and smiled. I will not do the matter of being willing to be a concubine. I will not do the matter of widely accepting concubines for my husband and spreading out branches and leaves. In the beginning when Prince Rui came to my Shen residence to propose marriage, he had said that the inner courtyard of the prince residence would not accept other females. If it was not so, I would not travel thousands of miles to marry to Longyi. The surrounding Furins were dumbstruck when they heard it. The world was like this and it was not fair between men and women. In a male's inner courtyard, most of them had 3 or 4 wives. No matter if it was Great Liang or Mingqi, it was not that there were no other couples, but it was rare. An ordinary male would not be able to withstand the temptation, much less a rich family, official's family, or the sons of the imperial family. Prince Rui was handsome and distinguished with a high position of power. He was young but his status was outstanding and the world he faced was full of flowers. For a person like him, how could he only have one woman in his life? This young lady from the Shen family of Mingqi really had such a big face and really did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Lu Wanner was so angry that her face almost turned green as she said word by word, Qin Wangfei Rui, this is being easily jealous. When a female is easily jealous, one's virtue is lacking. Shen Miao smiled, most likely so. I have always been easily jealous. If Prince Rui hadn't raised this condition, I probably wouldn't have been moved. Lu Wanner was so angry that she couldn't speak. Shen Miao's attitude was like a thorn, making one unable to make a move. The surrounding Furins were also surprised. Shen Miao had just arrived at Longyi, and not only did she not tuck her tail between her legs and behave lowly, she was so arrogant that she even dared to offend the Lu family that even Emperor Yonglu was slightly afraid of. One did not know where she got her courage from. Was she really that stupid to such an extent? Of course Shen Miao was not afraid. Even if Emperor Yonglu was not satisfied with her and wanted to arrange another marriage for Xie Jingxing, he would not marry Lu Wan'er to Xie Jingxing. Even though Lu Wan'er said that her marriage to Xie Jingxing would help Xie Jingxing's career, not to mention that Xie Jingxing was not someone who relied on a woman's ability to climb up, even Emperor Yonglu did not dare to easily allow Xie Jingxing to marry into the Lu family. The matter of Jingfei was most likely a helpless move. But if Lu Wan'er also entered into the residence of Prince Rui, then the two brothers of the imperial family of the Great Liang would have a relationship with the Lu family. It was not a good thing for the relatives to monopolize power. Fu Xiaoyi could use Shun Miao to tie the Shun family together because the Shun family was loyal in nature, but the Lu family already had wild ambitions. Logically, Lu Wan'er was not Emperor Yongli's choice. Now that Shun Miao strongly rejected Lu Wan'er's proposal, one feared that it would be passed to Emperor Yongli's ears, and it would be in accordance with Emperor Yongli's intentions. Chapter 903. When Lu Foran and Lu Wan'er froze, they heard a chuckle from the opposite side. Qin Wangfei is indeed a sentimental person. Prince Rui is young but values relationships and righteousness. It is a rare male in the world. Shen Miao looked towards the person who spoke. That person was sitting beside Ji Yushu's mother, and was a slightly thin Foran. She wore a brown embroidered skirt and her skin was slightly dark. Her eyebrows were upright, but because of her age, they were sunken, making her look somewhat unapproachable. Her eyes were somewhat long, and when she looked at people, it was as if she wanted to see through them, making one uncomfortable. With one look, one would know that she was a shrewd and serious person. Octagonal Anise took the time when Shan Miao was pouring tea and quietly whispered in her ear, "This is Yi Foran from the residence of Prime Minister." With just one sentence, Shan Miao understood. When Yi family, Wu Lu family. It could be assumed that this Yi Foran was one of the two great families in Long Yi, the Yi family from the residence of Prime Minister. Different from the Lu family's arrogance, this Yi family's Foran looked more restrained than Lu Foran, but it made Shan Miao feel that it was harder to deal with. Yi Foran looked at Shan Miao and suddenly smiled. Both Prince Rui and his wife have a deep relationship. It seems that in a few days' time, Qin Wangfei will also follow the imperial hunt. Shan Miao smiled. This still needs to be discussed with His Highness. She could not casually respond to random words. Today at the Kaixia banquet, everyone in the room did not come with good intentions. She dared not take it lightly. Wang Fei has just arrived and do not know the wonders of the imperial hunt. There are many interesting things and Wang Fei can join in the fun. Yi Foran continued. Lu Foran and Lu Wan'er did not speak. Today, they were blocked by Shan Miao and were very unhappy in their hearts. Now that Yi Foran spoke, they did not have the intention to help. Shen Miao looked at that Yi Foran and actually wanted to force her to agree to the hunting. Madame Ji, who was sitting beside Madame Yi, smiled and said, "Everyone, please don't force Princess Rui. Princess Rui is still young. Just like what Madame Yi said, she's a newcomer and I'm afraid she's still a little shy. Everyone in the hunting ground is familiar with each other. Naturally, we have to think about it." She took the initiative to help Shen Miao out. Shen Miao looked over in surprise, but Ji Foran smiled and nodded at her. Madame Ji's husband was the left disciple of the imperial court, and his official position was not low. Naturally, the other madams would not refute her words. When Madame Yi heard this, she did not continue to be overbearing. She only looked at Shen Miao inquisitively, causing Shen Miao to frown slightly. This Kaixia banquet passed by indifferently, and most likely Lu Wan'er was angered by Shan Miao to the point that she immediately turned and left. The remaining Lu Foran treated Shen Miao indifferently. Since the host of the Kaixia banquet was Lu Foran, the other Furans naturally followed Lu Foran's footsteps and deliberately ignored Shan Miao. However, Shen Miao was often neglected in Mingqi when she was young, so she did not take it to heart. As she drank her tea, she listened to Octagon Anise explain the relationship between the Furans, and she secretly remembered it. Not only did these snubs not affect her, but it also made her remember the relationship between these people more fully. When she left, there was naturally no one to send her off. Just as he was about to board the carriage, he was unexpectedly stopped by someone. Looking back, it was Ji Foran. Ji Yushu's biological mother had a dignified and amiable temperament, and her appearance was somewhat similar to Ji Yushu. She looked at Shen Miao and smiled. Yuer told me that at that time in Mingqi's Ding capital, he was indebted to Princess's care. Today this son will represent Yuer to thank Princess. Shen Miao's heart blushed and repeatedly said that she did not dare. In the end, it was because she made use of Ji Yushu's Fengxian pawnshop to accomplish a lot of things. Chapter 904. Seeing that there was no one around, Madame Ji leaned closer and whispered, "Princess, you saw it today. Madame Lu's fourth young mistress is determined to marry into Prince Rui's residence. However, you don't have to take her words to heart. If it were possible, fourth young mistress would have become Princess Rui long ago. As for the royal hunt that Madame Yi mentioned today, you should inform Prince Rui about it later. There's more to it than meets the eye. Princess, don't be tricked by others." Seeing that there were already other Furens coming out of the Lu family's doors, Ji Furen said, "It is inconvenient for me to say the rest. If Wang Fei is free, you can come over to the residence. You are not familiar with Long Yi, so I can help you put in a word." She then bid farewell to Shen Miao and hurriedly left. On the way back, Shen Miao kept thinking about the day's events. She didn't take Lu Wanner's words to heart. For some reason, she felt that Madame Yi was extremely annoying. Shen Miao asked Octagon Anise, "I didn't see Madame Ye's daughter at the banquet today. How many young mistresses are there in the Yi family? Why didn't she bring any of them out?" Octagon Anise was stunned and shook his head. "There are no young mistresses in the Yi family. How can there be no young mistresses?" Shen Miao frowned. "This is a fact that everyone in Long Yi knows." Octagon Anise said, "Prime Minister Yi and Madame Yi were a couple when they were young. They had a daughter when they got married, but she died young. Madame Yi was too worried and her relationship with Prime Minister Yi faded. Prime Minister Yi later took in a concubine who gave birth to a son. He is the current young Master Yi of the Prime Minister's residence." Shen Miao frowned. "There are no other children in the Prime Minister's residence?" Octagon Anise shook his head. After Prime Minister Yi had young Master Yi, he was assassinated on a trip and injured the root of his offspring. It was impossible for him to have children in the future. Shen Miao was astonished. How could a high-ranking family like the Yi family only have one son? She asked, "Doesn't that mean that the Yi family only has one son?" "That's not true. The concubine was weak when young Master Yi was born. However, some people say that the Yi family strangled the concubine to death. Young Master Yi was raised under Madame Ye's name after he was born. However," Octagon Anise paused. Octagon Anise continued, "Even though young Master Yi is the son of the first wife." "Why is that?" Shen Miao asked curiously. Even though he wasn't her biological son, under the circumstances that the Yi family didn't have any other children, Madame Yi could raise him under her name. If Madame Yi treated this legitimate son better, her life would be much better in the future. Young Master Yi was born with a congenital disease. His legs and feet are unable to walk. This kind of person will never be able to become an official in the future, so some people say that the Yi family will decline in this generation, Octagonal Anise explained. Shen Miao then understood in her heart. So he was a cripple. No wonder Madame Yi looked down on him. Thinking of this, his heart lit up. The Wan Yi family, the Wu Lu family, and the Lu family all sent Jing Fei into the palace. Why didn't the Yi family? It wasn't that the Yi family didn't have ambition, but because the Yi family didn't have any extra daughters. He was afraid that if he sent his relative's daughter over, it would be difficult to control her. Then the current situation. Shen Miao could roughly guess Emperor Yongli's plan. In terms of heirs, the Ye family cannot compete with the Lu family. If they form an alliance with the Lu family, even if one day their ambitions are fulfilled, only the Lu family will benefit. People always have bad habits. Why is it that both of us are aristocratic families, but in the end, you are the only one who is strong and I am declining? It's better for me to turn against them. Emperor Yonglu probably wants to provoke an internal conflict between the Lu and Yi families. He wants to subdue the Yi family and then deal with the Lu family, which holds military power. This will be much easier. Chapter 905. It was just that the Yi family and the Lu family had been on good terms for so many years, and their interests were intertwined. The Yi family had the Lu family's weakness, but the Lu family also had the Yi family's weakness. It was not easy to drive a wedge between them. As she was thinking about these things, Shen Miao did not even notice that the carriage had returned to the residence of Prince Rui. It was only when Octagon Anise called out, "Master?" Someone flicked her forehead and asked, "What are you thinking about?" Shen Miao then saw Xie Jingxing. Today he came back early and was wearing a dark red official robe with an imposing appearance. Shen Miao quivered and pulled his sleeves as she hurriedly walked towards the study. "Just in time, I have something to ask you." Xie Jingxing was first stunned and then helplessly allowed her to pull him forward. Octagon Anise and Guyu were dumbfounded. Octagon Anise grinned and said, "Madam is really proactive." Guyu said, "That is how it should be." Uncle Tang appeared from behind and said faintly, "What are you looking at? Get to work." Octagon Aniseed and Guyu stuck out their tongues and quickly walked away. Uncle Tang looked at the tightly shut door and shook his head. He sighed. "There's not even a drop of blood. How can it be considered as initiative?" In the room, Shen Miao then told Xie Jingxing about what happened today, and Xie Jingxing said, "Imperial hunt." Shen Miao nodded. "It seems to be somewhat unusual. Every year on the second day of the 6th month, the imperial family hunt is a rule passed down by the late emperor." Xie Jingxing lazily said, "But imperial older brother and I will only wander around outside and will not go in." "Why?" Shen Miao asked. "It's dangerous." Xie Jingxing lowered his voice. Shen Miao was startled. When Xie Jingxing saw her expression, he smiled instead and raised his brows, scared. "What is there for me to be afraid of?" Shen Miao looked at him. "Your meaning is that someone will take action against His Majesty and you? The imperial hunt is filled with imperial guards. Who would have the guts to do that? You have seen Mou Jun before." Xie Jingxing suddenly changed the topic. "That is my people and has nothing to do with the Great Liang army. Imperial older brother also knows about it. Do you know why you want to raise a private army? Because the imperial family's army can't be trusted?" Shen Miao asked quickly, but her heart was filled with disbelief. Xie Jingxing snapped his fingers. Shen Miao was speechless. The common people said that Emperor Yonglu was a wise ruler of the Great Liang, and all of the Great Liang's sons revered him. It seemed that the common people were like this, but the military officers and ministers did not seem to be as loyal as the rumors said. The Great Liang's imperial family did not scheme against each other, and what came were external troubles. The armies of the imperial family were passed down from generation to generation. In other words, the troops passed down by the late emperor were not willing to be used by the current emperor Yonglu. Thinking of Xie Jingxing's cold tone towards the late emperor, Shen Miao's heart was somewhat curious. She hesitated for a moment before looking at Xie Jingxing and asked, "Speaking of which, at that time you were stranded in Mingqi's Ding capital. What was the hidden story behind it?" Hearing that, Xie Jingxing's gaze changed slightly. Shen Miao was sitting beside him, and she could feel the coldness of his emotions at this moment. After a moment, Xie Jingxing smiled and stretched out his hand to touch Shen Miao's head. "Why do you have so many questions? Do you want to know my secrets again? If you want to know, you can exchange for it yourself." He smiled ambiguously. "Your body is fine too." Shen Miao rolled her eyes at him. Xie Jingxing said again, "But you do not seem to be angry at Lu Wanner's words at all?" He was slightly dissatisfied. "Someone covets your husband and you do not fly into a rage? Shen Jiao Jiao, you really have no conscience." Shen Miao said, "Anyway, you will not agree to it, is it not so? The Lu family is full of ambition and most likely you do not have the heart to raise a poisonous snake by your side." Chapter 906. Xie Jingxing laughed out loud and stared at her. "Do I not have a poisonous snake by my side now, and it is a snake bell?" This person could not be serious for more than 3 sentences. Shen Miao was too lazy to talk to him and said, "Yi family. What do you think of the Yi family?" Xie Jingxing pondered. The Yi family are smarter than the Lu family and know how to endure. Perhaps because of the children, they are not as arrogant as the Lu family. Imperial older brother and I plan to start from the Yi family and provoke the Yi and Lu families. Shen Miao's fingers shrunk. She did not know why, but when facing Yi Foreign today, she had an indescribable feeling that the Yi family was not as easy to deal with as imagined. It was just that this thought came out of nowhere, and she herself did not know what was going on. But Xie Jingxing saw the strangeness in her expression and asked, "You seem to have something to say?" Shen Miao shook her head. Most likely she was being overly suspicious. She then asked, "Will you participate in the Imperial City hunt this time? Ji Foreign told me not to be schemed against by others, which makes me feel strange." Xie Jingxing's expression turned slightly cold. "This time, even if you do not want to go, you have to follow." "Why?" "This year is the 60th year celebration set by the late emperor. In the Imperial City hunt, Imperial older brother must hunt a male lion in the hunting grounds to show that the weather will be good in the coming year, and that he will be a wise ruler of the Great Liang." "Male lion?" Shen Miao said. "This is considered a ferocious beast. In normal hunting grounds, one's safety was naturally the most important. After all, those who came to hunt were high-ranking officials and nobles, and it would not be good if one's life was injured. There was no need to fear wild rabbits or foxes for a lion, as one would lose one's life if one was not careful. There is no need to fear wild beasts." Xie Jingxing's lips hooked up and his smile was somewhat cold. "Wild beasts will not secretly shoot arrows and are much safer than humans. Only the Imperial City Guards can be brought in. This is the rule set by the late emperor, and it is hard to say if the Imperial City Guards are loyal or not." Xie Jingxing raised his brows. "So you have to understand that this is a trap that the late emperor left for us two brothers. A trap for the world to see, and even if one knows what it is, Imperial older brother and I have no choice." He then looked at Shen Miao, who had a worried expression, and pinched her face. "But do not worry, nothing will happen to you. Even though you will follow in the name of the Imperial family's wife, you will not need to enter the field." Shen Miao asked, "Do you have confidence?" An ominous premonition flashed across her heart, so much so that when she saw Xie Jingxing's joking expression, she was unable to relax. Xie Jingxing stared at her and slowly shook his head no. Shen Miao's heart tightened. Xie Jingxing smiled. "I lied to you." Shen Miao glared at him angrily. Xie Jingxing stretched his waist and leisurely said, "After the hunt is over, I will tell you about the matters in the palace, so that you will not think about it all day." He smiled faintly and said, "You are a member of the Xie family now, so you have to bear some responsibilities." Shen Miao's heart moved. Was Xie Jingxing planning to tell her his secret? Xie Jingxing's background, how did he end up in the Mingqi's Ding capital? And also Emperor Yonglu. Xie Jingxing's attitude towards the late emperor. One always felt that there was something to it. One could vaguely feel the heaviness in it. Xie Jingxing's temperament of talking about the past was not something that could be trained from ordinary experiences. Even though she was very gratified to know these secrets, but why did she have such an uneasy feeling in this Imperial City hunt? It was as if something bad was going to happen. His heart was beating very fast. Even though he tried his best to calm himself down, he still couldn't stop feeling restless. She was silent and secretly clenched her fists. Chapter 907. In the Great Liang Imperial Palace, Empress Xianda was listening to her palace maid reporting about what happened at the Kaixia banquet. She heard Shen Miao say, "I will not do the matter of willingly becoming a concubine. I won't help my husband take in many concubines and spread the branches and leaves. At the beginning, when Prince Rui came to my Shun residence to propose marriage, he had said that the inner courtyard of the prince residence would not accept other females. If it was not so, I would not travel thousands of miles to marry to Longyi." When she said this, Empress Xianda could not help but laugh. She was born gentle and dignified and usually had a calm attitude. When she laughed like this, there was a bit of a young lady's charm. "Why is Empress smiling so happily?" Emperor Yongli's voice was heard from outside. His expression was slightly cold as he stepped into the Wei Yang Palace. When he saw Empress Xianda's appearance, a strange look flashed in his eyes. Empress Xianda laughed happily and said, "Kai Lian, repeat Qin Wangfei's words to His Majesty again." The palace maid called Kai Lian quickly lowered her head and repeated Shen Miao's words that she had imitated in full detail. After listening, Emperor Yonglu flung his sleeves and said angrily, "Nonsense. No rules. Impudent to the extreme." Kai Lian jumped in shock and her body trembled. The anger of an emperor was not something that a little palace maid like her could bear. Empress Xianda looked at Emperor Yonglu reproachfully and said to Kai Lian, "Withdraw first." Kai Lian heaved a sigh of relief and quickly withdrew. Empress Xianda then smiled. Jing Xing, this wife, has a temperament that is a match made in heaven and earth. Both are so frank and straightforward. Really a person of character. Xie Yuan's nonsense is one thing, but you also follow him to do so? Emperor Yonglu looked at Empress Xianda with dissatisfaction. Empress seems to like Shen Miao very much. Long Yi had not seen such an interesting person for a long time. Empress Xianda smiled. She watched as Emperor Yonglu sat down beside her. Her tone was still soft, but there was an uncontrollable admiration in her voice. You look like a smart person, but it is rare that you maintain such a sincere heart. Did not see any intelligence or sincerity, Emperor Yonglu said coldly. It is just a female who racked her brains to curry favor. If that's really the case with Jing Xing's shrewdness, how could he not see it? How could he still like her? Emperor Yonglu was unconcerned. Xie Yuan is still young and cannot differentiate right from wrong. That is why he is bewitched by women. Empress Xianda sighed. She knew that Emperor Yonglu was stubborn and did not want to argue with him, so she said, in short, Bengong thinks that Jing Xing's wife is a very good person. If he was really good, he wouldn't have boasted shamelessly in front of so many people and said something about jealousy. Emperor Yonglu was very displeased. Does the Empress also think that it is right not to have children for your husband and take in concubines? Empress Xianda smiled faintly. That is naturally extremely good. It's just that very few women can do it. It is Princess Rui's good fortune to be able to do it. Empress. Hearing this, Emperor Yonglu frowned and looked at Empress Xianda with a stern gaze. This concubine has misspoken. Even though Empress Xianda said so, there was not much fear in her expression. She only said, "It is better for His Majesty to worry less about the matters of Prince Rui's residence. Jing Xing is a person with his own ideas. If one were to interfere more, it would attract his ill will. Zhen has my own plans," Emperor Yonglu said in a deep voice. After a moment of silence, Empress Xianda said, "Is His Majesty prepared for the Imperial City hunt next month?" "Only preparing one life." Emperor Yongli's expression did not show any joy or anger. "Zhen have already arranged everything. Can this concubine follow along?" Empress Xianda asked. "This concubine wants to follow by His Majesty's side. Zhen will bring consort Jing along." Emperor Yonglu said, "If something happens to Zhen, you still need to take care of the inner palace." Empress Xianda lowered her head and did not speak. After a moment, she raised her head again and smiled warmly. This concubine knows. The person that Zhen is most worried about is Xie Yuan. In the beginning when he was young, he hid in Mingqi and Zhen felt guilty towards him. But now that the world is settled, Zhen is still unable to fulfill the promise at the beginning. In the future, it is fine if he hates Zhen or understands Zhen's painstaking efforts. What Zhen can do is only this much. Emperor Yonglu looked outside and said sadly, "It is a pity that before Imperial Mother passed away, she was not able to see him once. If Imperial Mother knew in the underworld, she would be gratified to see how outstanding Jing Xing is now." Empress Xianda persuaded. "Empress," Emperor Yonglu suddenly said. Empress Xianda looked at him and heard Emperor Yonglu saying, "It has been hard on you for so many years. It is this concubine's good fortune to be able to share His Majesty's worries." Empress Xianda smiled. Her expression was very calm, as though no matter how great the suffering was, it would not be able to defeat her elegance. She said, "This concubine has accompanied His Majesty for decades. His Majesty treats this concubine very well. This concubine is already satisfied." Emperor Yonglu looked at Empress Xianda and wanted to say something. His lips moved, but he did not say anything. He only looked at Empress Xianda with a complicated look before moving his eyes away, and looked at the green smoke that was coming out of the bronze crane's beak. Empress Xianda also quietly looked at her sleeves, as though what was said just now was an ordinary household matter. It was just that her eyes were somewhat moist. Chapter 908. The weather on the second day of the 6th month was beautiful. It was obviously raining yesterday, but the sun was shining brightly on the second day. Even though the mountains were muddy, the recent weather had always been like this. Luotan stretched her waist. There was a sufficient amount of ice cubes in the room, so even though Longye's summer days were long and hot, the room was still very dry. The maid in the room asked her with a smile, "Where does young lady want to go today?" Luotan looked at the little things piled up like a small hill in the room and said, "Do not know. Return and ask physician Gao. Gentleman Gao went out today, and will only return tomorrow night." The maid said, "Let this servant inform young lady that if young lady want to go out, call a few guards in the residence and this servant will follow you around. If there is anything that catches one's eye, this servant will just buy it back." "Something?" Luotan said. "Is there a patient that needs a consultation?" The maid smiled and did not answer. Luotan then waved her hands. "Since that is the case, then I will just casually stroll around." She had been in Longyi for almost a month and these days she was with Gao Yang. Gao Yang himself said that a medical practitioner had no borders. When he was young, he traveled outside and settled down in Longyi for a period of time. This residence in Longyi was all his. Even though Luotan felt that this statement was somewhat strange, but seeing that everyone in the residence said the same, she did not have any more doubts. That person who sent the letter to Shun Miao was sent back by Gao Yang, saying that Shun Miao had promised to bring Luotan along and would take good care of Luotan. One did not know how Gao Yang lied, but after the journey, the people from the Shun family really did not come over. The matter with the Shun family was considered over. Luotan was calculating in her heart. After a few days of playing around in Longyi, she would go and find Shun Miao to explain everything clearly. If she were to say it now, she was afraid that Shun Miao and Prince Rui would send people to send her back. She had not had enough to eat and play, so how could she go back now? Luotan walked out of the door and into the courtyard. She heard some noises coming from the streets across the courtyard and asked the maid beside her, "What is so lively outside?" The maidservant laughed. "Today is the royal hunt, coinciding with the 60th year celebration. His Majesty will be going to the hunting grounds to hunt as well. The Imperial Guards will be arriving soon, and the commoners on the streets are cheering." Luotan liked to join in on the fun, so she said, "Then let's go and take a look. Will we be able to see Her Majesty's heavenly face?" The maid's expression changed slightly. She shook her head and said, "The streets are crowded with people. Moreover, His Majesty is in the canopy. He can't see it." Luotan was somewhat disinterested. The maidservant smiled and said, "This servant will go prepare some snacks for the journey. After this, wherever young lady wants to go, this servant will accompany you." "Go ahead," Luotan said. After the maid left, Luotan sneaked towards the door of the backyard and whispered, "I won't go out, but it won't be too much to take a look from afar." Her figure quickly disappeared from the courtyard. After Shun Miao finished grooming, she saw Xie Jingxing coming out after changing his clothes. Because there was a hunt today, he also wore a riding outfit that was convenient for hunting. Narrow sleeves, high collar, waist belt and green boots embroidered with dark patterns. He looked very neat and refreshing, but because the riding outfit was very fitting, he looked like a reserved and elegant gentleman. Seeing Shun Miao, Xie Jingxing frowned. These clothes. After all, it was a hunting ground and it was a hot summer day. Jingzhe was afraid that Shun Miao would faint from the heat, so she specially found fresh clothes for her. Below the skirt was a pair of silk trousers and the trousers were wide and airy. The top part of the clothes was a thin layer of muslin, and only the chest area was a solid tube top. The lavender color was like a layer of cloud. Shun Miao usually looked dignified, but with this attire, there was a little bit of charm that was indescribably charming. Chapter 909. Shun Miao looked down at herself and said, "Not good looking." Xie Jingxing said, "The mountain wind is cold. It is better to wear an outer coat." Shun Miao. How could there be a cold wind in the June weather? Moreover, Longyi had always been warm. Xie Jingxing added, your body, hair and skin now belong to the Xie family and cannot be casually sunburned. Shen Miao said, understood. Jingzhe, go and bring an outer coat over. Xie Jingxing then gave up. When they were outside, Mo Qing and some of the guards from the residence of Prince Rui were already prepared. Ba Jiao and the rest were also there. Jingzhe and Guyu did not need to follow up today, and Xie Jingxing also transferred a female guard from the MOU army, Jianxiang, and Ba Jiao to act as Shen Miao's personal maid to protect her safety. The more thorough Xie Jingxing's arrangements were, the more uneasy Shen Miao's heart was. Today's imperial hunt coincided with the 60th year ceremony, so she had to come even if she did not want to. But even if there was no such thing, Shen Miao would not stay in the residence of Prince Rui by herself. Not because of anything else, but because her right eyelid kept twitching non-stop, as if it was indicating that something was going to happen. When Xie Jingxing saw her preoccupied look, he seemed to be in deep thoughts and said as he walked towards the door with Shen Miao, "Why are you so depressed?" Shen Miao said, "Always feel that one's heart is not at ease. Your husband's life is good." His lips hooked up, "For need not worry." Shen Miao rolled her eyes at him, but seeing that there was no horse carriage at the door, she asked, "The horse carriage is not brought over?" Xie Jingxing smiled and pulled Shen Miao to the door. Mo Qing led a horse forward and Xie Jingxing flipped up the horse before suddenly pulling Shen Miao's hand. Shen Miao was caught off guard as she was pulled up the horse and was encircled in Xie Jingxing's embrace. "The horse carriage is too slow." He looked down at Shen Miao and said unhurriedly, "You know archery, but do you know how to ride a horse?" Just as Shen Miao wanted to speak, Xie Jingxing interrupted her words. "It is all right if one do not know. Your husband will teach you." Finishing, he whipped the horse and the horse neighed and galloped away. Xie Jingxing's guard seemed to have followed behind and Shen Miao's back was leaning against Xie Jingxing's embrace. Her heart could not help but be shocked. That horse was also a good steed and ran very fast. Xie Jingxing's equestrian skills were very good, and he chose to take the winding road. The crowd in the marketplace would exclaim when they passed by and he laughed loudly, but it was extremely arrogant. Shen Miao recalled the first time she saw Xie Jingxing in this lifetime. In front of Guang Wentang's doors, that purple-clad handsome youth was sitting on a tall horse, lazily sizing everyone up. His breath was near her ear, almost on her cheek. His low and joyful laughter came from above her head and Shen Miao's heart was suddenly infected. In fact, she also yearned for this kind of freedom. She had also stood on the palace walls of the 9-layered palace and looked at the eagles flying high in the distance and the horses running freely under her feet. She yearned for this kind of free and easy life. But for her entire life, she could only be imprisoned in the depths of the palace, guarding the man she didn't love, and fighting against each other for the sake of her children. It seemed that she had not been this unbridled for a long time. Shen Miao laughed. "Are you as rude in Longyi as you are in the Ding capital?" "Even more so," Xie Jingxing replied. He lowered his head and swept a glance at her before placing his chin on the top of her head and smiled softly. "You are not as happy in the Ding capital as you are in Longyi." Chapter 9-10. Not so. Shen Miao smiled. "I also like myself like this." Xie Jingxing gritted his teeth. "Shun Jiao Jiao in Longyi. Those who dare to play tricks on me are all dead." Both of their laughter drifted far away with the summer breeze of Longyi. Among the guards behind, Feng Xiang and Ba Jiao whispered in each other's ears, "Is it not said that foreign's character is cold and it is our master's wishful thinking? It seems that the relationship is not bad. Foreign's character is not cold." Ba Jiao smiled. "Foreign is a good person." When the morning sun shone its golden rays over the earth, Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing finally arrived at the hunting grounds. The outer field of the hunting grounds was a flat forest, but the inner field was towards the Luanhua Peak. The Luanhua Peak was a strange peak in Longyi. The mountain was densely covered with forest and was majestic and precipitous. There were many rare beautiful sceneries and rare animals. Naturally, the journey was very difficult, and there was danger due to the presence of wild beasts. The imperial hunting grounds had set up this area as a hunting ground. This was a rule set by the late emperor. When the late emperor was still alive, according to the rules passed down by the founding emperor, in the 60-year ceremony, The current monarch must personally enter the inner field to hunt and only rest when the lion was hunted, with the lion as the sacrifice. When the previous emperors hunted at the Luanhua Peak, they would also encounter danger, but because of the imperial guards following in the forest, it was not a big problem. It was just that the present was not the same as the past. With the imperial guards, it was more dangerous than without. Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing's appearance was undoubtedly eye-catching. When everyone saw that they did not sit in a horse carriage but were riding together, they were all dumbstruck. Emperor Yonglu and Jing Fei had already arrived first. Jing Fei exclaimed in surprise before saying, "As a matron of the imperial family, how can? This is too rude." Emperor Yonglu frowned as he looked at Xie Jingxing, seemingly displeased with his actions. Xie Jingxing helped Shan Miao down from the horse and walked towards Emperor Yonglu in front of everyone. Today, Emperor Yonglu was also wearing a bright yellow riding outfit. Emperor Yonglu was also young and handsome, but his temperament was a little colder. When he was wearing the riding outfit, the two brothers stole the limelight of all the men in the hall. Xie Jingxing, Shen Miao and Emperor Yonglu bowed, but no one bothered with Jing Fei. When Consort Jing saw it, she bit her lips but suddenly looked at Shan Miao and smiled. Today Consort Rui Wangfei followed the prince of first rank to the hunting grounds. Both husband and wife have such deep feelings that they could ride together on the same horse. It really makes one envious. Finishing, she changed the topic in this way. When Prince Rui enters the inner field, Qin Wangfei will also follow. Before Shen Miao could reply, Emperor Yonglu frowned and said coldly, "She doesn't need to enter." Jing Fei stilled, as though she didn't expect Emperor Yonglu to suddenly speak. She was still thinking that it would be better if Shen Miao followed Prince Rui into the inner field. There were many ferocious wild beasts in the inner field, and even with Prince Rui's protection, even if Shen Miao was not injured, she would still be in a sorry state because of the shock. That day at Kaixia's banquet, Shen Miao's unceremonious oath to the Lu family had already reached Jing Fei's ears. Jing Fei was determined to give Shen Miao some hardship, but did not expect that Emperor Yonglu would help Shen Miao. Even though Jing Fei was arrogant, she did not dare to go against Emperor Yonglu openly. However, Shen Miao understood in her heart that Emperor Yonglu was not standing up for her. It was because it was very dangerous for the two brothers to go to the inner field. Perhaps Emperor Yonglu and Xie Jingxing had already arranged everything, and there would be more variables if one more person went in. Most likely Emperor Yonglu was afraid that if she went in, it would affect their plans. Xie Jingxing smiled and glanced at Jing Fei. Even though he did not say anything, Jing Fei could feel the warning intent from that gaze. She did not know why, but other than Emperor Yonglu, she was most afraid of this young prince of first rank. She was even more afraid of Prince Rui than her own father. Chapter 9:11. Seeing that Imperial Consort Jing no longer spoke, Xie Jingxing held Shen Miao's shoulders and said, "If Imperial older brother is fine, I will bring Jiao Jiao around first. She just came to Longyi and is not familiar with the people." Finishing, he did not care what expression Emperor Yonglu had and left with Shan Miao. They had only walked a few steps when they saw Ji Yushu running over excitedly from afar, and stood in front of them in one breath. "Third older brother, sister-in-law." Shen Miao looked at Ji Yushu's bright smiling face and was unable to link the shopkeeper who had opened a pawnshop in Mingqi with the young master of the great Liang Suotu family. She asked the question that she always wanted to ask, "Why do you keep calling him third older brother?" Ji Yushu was startled and looked at Xie Jingxing. "Did you not tell sister-in-law?" Seeing Xie Jingxing's non-committal attitude, Ji Yushu scratched his head and smiled at Shan Miao. "Actually, it should be called third Biao older brother. I and third Biao older brother are cousins, and in the ranking of the brothers in the clan, he is the third oldest. Third older brother's Empress mother is my maternal aunt. We are cousins." When Shen Miao heard Ji Yushu speak of the reason, she then understood that Ji Yushu's mother and Xie Jingxing's Empress mother were sisters of the same mother. Ji Yushu was also considered a relative of the imperial family, and was Xie Jingxing's cousin. No wonder Xie Jingxing always said that Ji Yushu was not good, but still took care of him. Ji Yushu laughed twice and rubbed his hands. "Heard that my mother had also seen sister-in-law. My mother said that sister-in-law is very good, dignified and virtuous, a daughter of a noble family. If it was not that third older brother took action early, she would complain that I did not marry a beauty like sister-in-law back in Mingqi. Xie Jingxing calmly said, Ji Yushu, do you want to go to the tower prison? I am only joking. Ji Yushu jumped up and ran like his butt was on fire, heard that Gao Yang also came today. I will go and see him. Sister-in-law, you slowly play. He disappeared far away. Xin Miao did not know whether to laugh or cry and turned to ask Xie Jingxing, Gao Yang also came? Why did I not see him? He's an official, so he probably came late. He then added, Gao Yang is the Minister of Defense. Xin Miao smiled, I know. You are quite capable to be able to inquire about Gao Yang's identity. Xie Jingxing said with a smile that was not a smile. Xin Miao's heart moved and she was speechless. She knew of Gao Yang's identity because in the previous lifetime when Mingqi came to pay tribute, the one who came was not Xie Jingxing but Gao Yang. At that time as Ding Wangfei, she had also seen Gao Yang. In this life, Xie Jingxing had never told her about Gao Yang's identity. It seemed that from the beginning, Xin Miao's attitude was that she had long known that Gao Yang was Xie Jingxing's people. Fortunately, Xie Jingxing did not continue to be entangled on this issue and said, When the hunt starts, you will follow me to the outskirts and hunt some rabbits and wild storks. I will go with Imperial Brother to the inner field at 9 o'clock. I will leave the Imperial bodyguards for you. You can stroll around the inner field as you please. Just stay outside. Pausing, she then said, Imu also came today and I let Ji Yushu mention to her that if I do not return later, you will return to the city with Imu and she will send you to the residence of the prince of first rank. You did not return later? Shen Miao looked at him suspiciously. Actually, Xie Jingxing had always been very confident in the way he did things. In Mingqi, he was the heir of the residence of the Marquis of Lin and under the covetous eyes of the Fu family, he was able to complete his own plans with ease. It was enough to show that he was not a person who would rush things. But this time Shen Miao's feeling was really not good that when she followed Xie Jingxing over today, her tone was filled with suspicion. Do not worry. Imperial older brother, and I have already made preparations. He smiled ambiguously. 2 months have not passed, how can I bear to die? Chapter 9:12. Xin Miao pushed him away. She didn't want to accompany Xie Jingxing in being indecent in public. However, when she turned around, she felt a gaze on her. Following the gaze, she saw Madame Yi looking at her that day at Kaixia's banquet. Madame Yi was wearing light clothes that were convenient for walking and stood far away. She did not avoid Xin Miao's gaze and looked over with a smile. It was just that the gaze made Xin Miao instinctively feel uncomfortable. She asked, Are the Yi family members going to hunt today? Yi Mao is the prime minister, so naturally he will follow. However, the officials will only be in the outer area and will not enter the inner area. Xie Jingxing followed Shen Miao's gaze and found that she was staring at Madame Yi. He asked curiously, You seem to be very concerned about Madame Yi. What happened? I do not know why. Shen Miao frowned. I always feel that the Yi family members do not give me a good feeling. You better be more careful. Imperial older brother has the intention to rope in the Yi family. He is paying attention to every move of the Yi family, and did not find anything wrong. Xie Jingxing pondered. Seeing Shen Miao's cautious expression, he comforted her. They will be outside and will not affect the situation. Do not worry. When Shen Miao looked at Madame Yi again, Madame Yi had already turned around to talk to other foreign. She suppressed the uneasiness in her heart and gave up. When the timing was right, the hunt would begin. Today, the officials of Long Yi were not of low status. The officials would accompany the hunt while the womenfolk would follow to watch the excitement. Those who were more courageous and playful would follow to the outside while those who were quieter would wait outside. Coincidentally, Lu Wanner also came today. Lu Wanner probably dressed up meticulously as even her riding attire was very exquisite, making her look incomparably delicate and charming. If there was no Xin Miao, she would most likely be the most eye-catching person on this occasion. Consort Jing and Lu Wanner were sisters after all, and were pampered by the Lu family. The temperament of a rich young lady was not fake. It was just that Shen Miao was also here, which made her pink riding attire look frivolous. She looked delicate and charming, but when she stood with Prince Rui, there was a sense of incongruity. It was no wonder, as there was a strange sense of harmony between Xie Jingxing and Shan Miao. Prince Rui was, after all, the younger brother of Emperor Yonglu, a true descendant of the heavens. It was fine as long as he was elegant. But Shen Miao was a young lady of an ordinary official's family in Mingqi. Moreover, it was a military family, yet she had a kind of noble air, dignified and steady feeling. The atmosphere between the two of them was flawless. Not to mention someone like Lu Wanner. Even if it was a celestial immortal who interfered, it would not be a big deal. Lu Wanner was completely unaware of it, and walked over to Shen Miao under everyone's strange gaze. Even though she was speaking to Shen Miao, her eyes were glued to Xie Jingxing. Her voice was delicate and sweet. When she pinched her throat to speak, it was almost as sweet as honey. Princess, I didn't expect to meet you here today. On the day of the Caixia banquet, the princess and I felt like old friends at first sight. I thought that I must see you again when I have time. I didn't expect to see you now. It's really fate. Lu Wanner was very polite to Shen Miao's words at this moment. How was there any shadow of her domineering attitude at the Caixia banquet? Shen Miao laughed in her heart. What exactly was Lu Wanner thinking in her mind? Could it be that Xie Jingxing would believe whatever she said? Not to mention that there were other Furins in the Lu residence. Even Shen Miao herself would not hide anything and tell the truth to Xie Jingxing. What Lu Wanner showed was not feeling like old friends at first sight, but hatred to the bones. As Lu Wanner was speaking, she did not wait for Shen Miao to reply and looked at Xie Jingxing. Her beautiful eyes were filled with undisguised affection as she said in a soft voice, Prince Rui looked very awe-inspiring today. Earlier in older sister's palace, and at that time Prince Rui had praised Wanner's qin skills to be outstanding. Now Wanner is diligently practicing the qin and has improved a lot. One do not know when Your Highness Prince Rui will be free to give Wanner a few pointers? Chapter 9:13. Shen Miao was startled and involuntarily looked at Xie Jingxing. In front of Xie Jingxing, Lu Wanner would not lie. Xie Jingxing actually really heard Lu Wanner play the zither? And he even praised Lu Wanner for her outstanding zither skills? Seeing Shen Miao's suspicious gaze, Xie Jingxing's lips slightly hooked up and smiled evilly. Oh? Are you unhappy? Shen Miao turned away. Xie Jingxing shrugged his shoulders, and when he looked at Lu Wanner again, his expression had changed. His brows were handsome and his eyes were slender. He was still speaking lazily, but his smile had already disappeared. When I was accompanying Imperial Brother to talk, I met Jing Fei. Jing Fei said that 4th Miss Lu was playing the zither in Jinghua Palace and wanted Imperial Brother to go listen. That day, this king heard that it was comparable to a crow. 4th Miss Lu, can't you tell the difference between sarcasm and flattery? I do need a great teacher to give me some pointers. Shen Miao almost could not hold back her laughter, as she did not discover that Lu Wanner was actually so stupid. Xie Jingxing had never given face when he spoke, so why would he care if there was anyone around? Lu Wanner's face immediately turned red. In fact, at that time in Jinghua Palace, after she finished playing the zither, she was looking at Prince Rui with her heart thumping non-stop. She was addicted to Prince Rui's handsome appearance, so how could she listen to what Prince Rui was saying? She did not hear it clearly and thought that Prince Rui was praising her. Now that Prince Rui had pointed it out, she seemed to be a joke, and Lu Wanner was instantly stunned. Xie Jingxing leisurely swept a glance at her and said, also, this prince is the emperor's brother. So 4th Lu young lady should not mention about going to the imperial concubine's palace in the future. If one did not know, they would think that 4th Lu young lady was deliberately instigating this kind of crime. This prince is not able to bear it. Finishing, he pulled Shen Miao and left, leaving Lu Wanner alone at the same spot. Shen Miao felt that Lu Wanner was so silly that she was somewhat pitiful and asked Xie Jingxing, the Lu family is so powerful. How is it that the young lady that was brought up is like this? No matter if it was Jing Fei or Lu Wanner, they were comparable to Shen Miao in the past. It was just that Shen Miao was deliberately raised up by the second and third household of the Shen family to have that kind of temperament. This Lu Wan'er and Jing Fei were Lu Foran's biological daughters. Xie Jingxing said, full of thoughts on the fight in court, one naturally neglected to discipline one's children. Moreover, the Lu family has always been tolerant towards their daughters. They're just trying their best to cultivate their men. Shun Miao then understood that with the Lu family's business, the young ladies in the family would not have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of their lives. Thus it was not a problem to be a little arrogant and willful, as there was the support of the maternal family. As he spoke, Xie Jingxing had already pulled Shan Miao to the edge of the hunting ground. The courtiers and some womenfolk who wanted to liven things up had already picked out their horses. When Xie Jingxing approached, Tai brought 2 horses over. One was a tall black steed, and the other was a slightly shorter maroon pony. Xie Jingxing helped Shun Miao onto the date red horse before he himself got onto the black horse. Emperor Yongli's side also started to move. The imperial guards were ready to follow Emperor Yonglu in. The drummer began to beat the drum rhythmically, as if he was playing some ancient music. The drumbeats became more and more rapid. Finally, an archer standing on a high platform shot an arrow. The arrow flew straight and hit a golden fruit hanging in the distance. The drummer hammered the drum fiercely. The hunt had begun. Xie Jingxing brought Shun Miao to the outer field and Mo Qing and the rest followed beside him. When one entered the hunting ground, one could bring along a few guards. But there was no danger in the outer field, and it was broad daylight so nothing would happen. It was just a precaution to bring along. When will you enter the inner field? Shun Miao asked Xie Jingxing as she rode the horse. She had not ridden a horse for a long time, but the horse she was riding was considered docile, and it was much easier for her to control it. Imperial older brother will give me the signal later. I will leave at that time. Xie Jingxing sat up straight. I can still accompany you to walk around now. Do you want to fight a fox? Shun Miao fox. Xie Jingxing stretched out his hand to pull her reins. Follow me. Xie Jingxing was an expert in hunting and Shun Miao did not doubt that if he was not the great Liang's Prince Rui and was just an ordinary mountain villager, just by relying on his hunting skills, he would be able to become rich. Shun Miao had always felt that it was just Shun Qiu's boasting about shooting a willow tree from 100 steps away. But today she witnessed it with her own eyes. Xie Jingxing's aim was very good and almost every shot hit the target. In just a short period of time, their horses were already piled with prey. Even though they were all small beasts, it was still hard to come by. What else do you want to fight? Xie Jingxing smiled proudly. I will help you hunt them. Just as Shun Miao was about to speak, she saw Song Yang rushing over from the other side. He said breathlessly, Master, it is not good. The Emperor has entered the inner field. Just now Tai and I were searching but did not see the Emperor's shadow and only saw horsehoof prints at the bottom of the Luan flower peak. Inner field. Xie Jingxing frowned. Without giving the signal, he went to the inner field. His eyes flashed and he suddenly growled, This is bad. Chapter 9:14. Damn it! Xie Jingxing suddenly turned back and instructed Mo Qing and the rest. All of you escort Foran out of the outer grounds. Tai follow me. Shun Miao said, You want to go to the inner grounds now? The uneasy feeling in her heart became heavier and heavier, to the point that Shun Miao almost had the urge to pull Xie Jingxing and not let him leave. Xie Jingxing looked at her deeply and for the first time, his eyes were tainted with seriousness. There is a change in the plan. Shun Miao clenched her fists and looked at him. I will wait for your return. Xie Jingxing did not speak anymore and turned the horse's head. He whipped the horse and Tai followed closely behind. Both of them gradually went far away and one could no longer see their figures in the dust from the horse's hooves. Shun Miao held the reins tightly as she sat on the horse's back. At this time she no longer had the mood to stroll around the outer grounds. Mo Qing said, Foran, let us return. Shun Miao nodded her head and Mo Qing and a group of guards escorted Shun Miao away. Even so, Shun Miao's heart was still thumping non-stop. She tried her best to calm herself down. She carefully pondered over every detail of the matter. Today's matter seemed to be filled with hidden dangers. Emperor Yongli's position in the Great Liang Imperial Court was not as stable as imagined. Among them, the Lu family's soldiers were the leaders, and there was a faint intention to rebel. Most importantly, the Lu family seemed to have served the late emperor previously. Could it be that there was discord between Emperor Yonglu and the late emperor? Just like how some emperors were not willing to pass the throne to a certain son. Could it be that Emperor Yongli's position was not obtained properly, and some methods were used which made the late emperor hold a grudge in his heart? After 100 years he still laid out a big net, just to pull him down one day? Xie Jingxing and Emperor Yonglu should have made some arrangements for this, but one did not know why Emperor Yonglu entered the inner grounds alone and headed towards the Luanhua Peak. There were only two possibilities. One was that someone in the Imperial Guards coerced Emperor Yonglu and Emperor Yonglu was forced to enter the inner grounds in advance. Two was that this was Emperor Yongli's own idea. He should have made a certain decision but did not discuss it with Xie Jingxing. Shen Miao felt that it should be the second, because there were still some officials and other people walking in the outer field. Even if the Imperial Guards had ulterior motives, they would not choose to make a move here. They would definitely wait for Emperor Yonglu to enter the inner field before making a move. But why did Emperor Yonglu want to enter in advance? And what decision did he make to make Xie Jingxing so nervous? Shen Miao had never seen such a serious expression on Xie Jingxing's face before. She followed the horse stance in a daze and happened to see an eagle flying in the sky letting out a long cry. Her heart suddenly quivered, and an unbelievable thought emerged in her mind. However, that thought was quickly denied by her. She shook her head and secretly patted her chest. When he exited the outer courtyard, he saw Madame Ji at a glance. Madame Ji did not go out with Lord Ji to hunt, but waited outside. Shen Miao did not know anyone in Longyi, so she went up to greet Ji Foreign. "Qin Wangfei, why did you come out so early?" Madame Ji smiled. "I thought you would stay inside to play for a while longer. There are many foxes in the outer field. If one is lucky, one can hunt a rare black fox and use its skin to make a scarf. It is warm and beautiful." Shen Miao smiled slightly. "I am only going in with them to join in the fun and do not know how to hunt." She then looked at Ji Foreign and said, "Foreign does not have to call me Wangfei Wangfei. After all, we are relatives. Just call me Jiaonyang. I can also call Foreign Emu with a thick face." Ji Foreign stilled and then smiled even more warmly. "So Jingxing has already told you. Since that is the case, I will not do those superficial things and just call you Jiaonyang." Chapter 9:15. Shen Miao smiled. Luo Shuiyan did not have any sisters and only brothers. Thus she only had a Juzhou and not an emu. Now that there was an emu, it was indeed fresh. But looking at Ji Foreign's dignified and decent bearing, it seemed that she was a person who knew the situation and spoke very straightforwardly. Shen Miao changed her thoughts and felt that it was so, otherwise how could Ji Yushu's temperament be raised? Ji Foreign pulled Shen Miao's hand and said as they walked to the other side, "Today Jingxing and Xingji will go to the inner field to hunt and you will wait outside with me. When the sun has set, they should be back. At that time, the two of you can go to the Ji residence and have a meal together. Speaking of which, ever since Jingxing came back this time, he has not come to our residence for a meal." Shen Miao smiled and complied. In a blink of an eye, she thought of Xie Jingxing and suddenly became somewhat worried and asked, "Yunmu, is the fight in the inner field dangerous or not? One fear that it is not easy to hunt a male lion." Ji Foreign sighed. "These are the rules that were set since the founding of the country. After so many years, it was originally going to be abolished, but at the end the late emperor." Her tone suddenly paused and looked at Shen Miao before smiling. "You do not need to worry as there is still the Imperial Guards. Even though the beasts are fierce, those guards are not to be trifled with. Moreover, both of them have martial arts and are not idle people without the strength to truss a chicken. Their self-protection skills are more than enough." When Shen Miao heard it, she also smiled, but her heart was thinking that it seemed that Ji Foreign did not know about it. If she knew about it, she would definitely not show such a relaxed expression. Those Imperial Guards were also not as safe as they looked on the surface. Ji Foreign was not a person who could discuss things, and Shen Miao was somewhat regretful at this moment. She should have called Pei Lang along so that at least things could still be discussed. She did not have any acquaintances in Longyi, and did not know anything about Xie Jingxing's arrangements, so it would not be good to rashly make arrangements. At the edge of the outer field far away from the bushes, there was an arbor that was set up immediately. Because the ones who came today were the nobility, there were a lot of ice cubes that were brought over. At this moment it was very cool, and some of the young ladies and furins were sitting inside, drinking tea and eating snacks. Occasionally they would see their own family members coming back with some game, and would feel excited as they cheered and jumped up to show off. In the end, he treated it as a new form of entertainment. Shen Miao's heart, however, gradually sunk as she looked at the misty Hualuan Peak in the distance. The Hualuan Peak was steep and one could not see the end of it. Everyone here were chatting happily, but who knew if there was a life and death struggle going on inside? Or was it some kind of fierce battle? Was the prey really just a lion or a golden dragon from the 9 heavens? Just as she was thinking, someone walked over from the opposite side. Shen Miao looked up and saw that it was the astute Madame Yi. Madame Yi walked to Madame Ji's side and sat down. She looked at Madame Ji and smiled. "Why didn't you go in as well?" "How could I know how to hunt? I'm just watching." Madame Ji also laughed. Although the Ji family and the Yi family did not have much contact, they still had to give face. After all, Yi Maocai's official position was not much different from Ji's was. In fact, it might even be slightly higher. Madame Ji asked, "Even Madame Yi is not going in?" "I will not go." Madame Yi waved her hands. "My body is weak and cannot stand the jolting of the horse." Her gaze landed on Shen Miao and said, "Why did Qin Wangfei not go in? Did you not see Prince Qin Wang accompanying Qin Wangfei to go in? Why did you not play a little longer?" Shen Miao's heart moved. Madame Ye's words seemed to be probing something. Could it be that she knew a little about what happened in the inner field today? The Lu and Yi family's status in Longyi was subtle, and it was worth paying attention to. She said, "The sun was too strong and the outer field made me dizzy, so I came back first." She then put on a slightly disgusted look. "Moreover, I do not like to see scenes of killing." Chapter 9:16. Ji Foran smiled. Princess Rui is soft-hearted, but it is not surprising. Even an ordinary female would not be willing to see a rabbit being killed. Seemingly afraid that Yi Foran would continue to interrogate Shen Miao, Ji Foran deliberately changed the topic and asked Yi Foran, "Speaking of which, I heard that young Master Yi suffered from pain a few days ago. Is it better?" Young Master Yi naturally referred to the D-son that was given birth by the concubine of the Yi family, and brought up under Yi Foran's name. When Yi Foran heard this, she said, "It is still all right. It is an old problem. When it rains it would be very painful. There is no solution even after so many years." Her tone was indifferent. Shen Miao later found out from Octagon Jiao that this young Master Yi was the D-son of the Yi family on the surface. The servants were very respectful to him, but secretly they felt that he did not have a future. Yi Foran only treated him on the surface but never really cared about him. Shen Miao felt that this young Master Yi that she had never met was a little pitiful. Ji Foran and Yi Foran continued to pull each other. Most likely it was to divert Yi Foran's attention. In the end, Yi Foran seemed to be somewhat impatient and got up to leave. Shen Miao and Ji Foran then sat together and waited. The sun gradually set, but there was still no sign of Emperor Yonglu, and Xie Jingxing. Shen Miao instructed Mo Qing, "Go and inquire if there is any news of them." Ji Foran smiled. "Do not worry. There have been times like this before. Due to the need for patience in hunting, time passes in a flash. The path to Hualuan Peak is too steep and it is not easy to walk after dark. One would have to wait until the next day to return." Even though she said so, the slight anxiety in her eyes was captured by Shen Miao. Shen Miao did not know if she was too sensitive. If she did not know about Xie Jingxing's previous matters, she would really be at ease. But this time she already had a bad premonition and knew that Xie Jingxing's trip was not as easy as it looked on the surface. Her heart tightened. After the sun set, the sky gradually darkened. The emperor had not returned. Other than a few young ladies and womenfolk who had already returned, the officials were still around the hunting grounds. Shen Miao asked Ji Foran if this was the first time such a situation occurred. Ji Foran replied, "Not really, but it was very rare in the past. Some of the officials had already set up camp, using long cloth to make something like a tent. Even though it was summer, there would still be dew in the night, so they were afraid of catching a cold. The Ji family also made such a tent. Shun Miao was still walking outside when she saw Lu Wan'er standing not far away, and talking to a middle-aged man. It seemed like she was acting coquettishly or pleading, but the man was unmoved. Immediately after, Lu Wan'er was forcefully pulled onto the carriage and escorted away by a group of guards. Lu Wan'er probably wanted to stay here, but this man didn't allow it. Shun Miao was about to leave when the man seemed to feel Shun Miao's gaze and suddenly turned his head, revealing a fiendish face. He was tall and sturdy like a bear. His face was bloodthirsty and he seemed to have a violent temper. He looked at Shun Miao with a gloomy gaze. Octagon Anise said, "That's the master of the Lu family, General Lu Zhengchun." Shun Miao suddenly realized that this was Lu Wan'er's father, the military general of the Lu family. Then she was surprised. As a military general, Shen Xian was also very valiant, but he did not look as ruthless as this person. It was as if he could not conceal the murderous intent in his heart. He was a natural god of death. Shun Miao previously found it strange that Lu Foran, Lu Wan'er and Jing Fei did not look smart. How did the Lu family maintain such a reputation and status in Longyi? Now that she saw Lu Zhengchun, she understood. Chapter 917. The Lu family and Madame Yi were here. Yi Maokai had also returned and was discussing something with Madame Yi. Both the Lu and Yi families were present. If something really happened to Emperor Yonglu here, the Lu and Yi families would not take the opportunity to do something disgraceful. Looking around, some of the officials had already entered their tents and were chatting with their wives. They treated this hunt as a fun game. They were only waiting for Emperor Yonglu and Xie Jingxing to bring back the lion as an offering for the ceremony. Shun Miao stopped and looked at the sky. The stars were quiet and the summer breeze was refreshing. But was this night really as peaceful as it looked? Ji Foran called her. "Jiaonyang, it's cold outside. Come into the tent." Shun Miao smiled and went in. Master Ji was not in the tent. The officials sat together in groups of 3 or 5, drinking and chatting. It was a rare moment of leisure and they relaxed. Ji Foran poured a cup of hot tea for Shun Miao and said, "Don't worry, they will be fine. But you, if you catch a cold and Jingxing questions me, I will not be able to bear the responsibility." Shun Miao smiled and said, "He wouldn't dare." She then thought of something and hesitated before saying, "His Highness's relationship with the late emperor did not seem to be very good?" Hearing this, Ji Foran was stunned. She smiled and said, "Why did you suddenly ask about the late emperor?" Even though Ji Foran tried her best to conceal it, Shun Miao could still feel the flash of hatred in Ji Foran. Shun Miao had always been curious about the late emperor's role in Xie Jingxing and Emperor Yongli's lives in the Longyi court. Since Ji Foran and the late empress were sisters, she must have some understanding of the late emperor. Could she get some information about the late emperor from Ji Foran? Shun Miao did not hide it and said, "I heard His Highness mention a little, but it was not clear. I just felt it was strange." Ji Foran looked at her in surprise and said, "I did not expect him to tell you about this." She then smiled and said, "In the end, this is Jingxing's family matter. If I tell you, it will not be good. Another day you can sit with Jingxing and tell him honestly. Then you will know the details." This meant that she was not willing to say. But because of Ji Foran's attitude, Shun Miao's heart confirmed her conjecture. Thinking about it, the late emperor really did not get along with the Xie Jingxing brothers. Looking at Ji Foran's attitude, she probably did not treat the late empress' paternal family very well. Thinking about all these in her heart, Ji Foran also sank into contemplation and only reacted after a long time before speaking to Shun Miao. "AI. Everything is fine, so there is no need to mention about these. Jiaonyang, you should also sleep for a while. What if they come back tomorrow morning and you are tired instead? What if you hurt your body? How would Shun Miao be able to sleep at this time?" She had her mind on the matter and said, "I will sit for a while more. Anyway, I cannot sleep." Seeing her stubbornness, Madame Ji did not continue to persuade her. After talking for a while, Ji Foran felt tired. She was not as young as Shun Miao and could not stay up all night, so after a while she dozed off in the tent. Shun Miao covered her with the cloak and sat in the tent. Who knew that she would sit for an entire night? The morning light was bright and there were sounds of birds and beasts chirping coming from the distant forest. Master Ji was drinking with his colleagues at the other end yesterday, and had already sobered up. He walked towards the tent and coincidentally met Shen Miao opening the tent door to leave. Unconsciously surprised, Shen Miao smiled at him and said, "Yumu has not woken up and is currently sleeping. Yufu's voice should be softer." Master Ji nodded his head and said to her, "Go and eat something first." Chapter 9:18. Shen Miao complied and walked out on her own. Some of the Furens outside had already woken up and their expressions showed their fatigue. They were all noble people, so it was impossible for them to make do with their tents. Those who were especially pampered had already returned to their residences last night, and those who stayed behind were either to fawn on Emperor Yonglu or to experience this rare leisure time. Fennel served a bowl of porridge to Shen Miao. When Emperor Yonglu came out, a few chefs from the palace came over to specially cook for these officials and womenfolk. As Shen Miao drank the porridge, she asked Octagonal Anise, "Is there still no news from His Highness?" Octagonal Anise shook his head. Shen Miao looked into the distance. The sun had already emerged from the top of the mountain and after another 2 hours, the sky would be completely bright. Even if Xie Jingxing and the rest spent a night on the mountain, they should be back by now. There was no precedent of hunting on the mountain for an entire 2 days. Although they did not just hunt. "Is there no signal in your MOU army?" Shen Miao asked. "This time your master did not discuss with you about the matter. Once the matter is successful, what signal will be released to inform?" Octagonal Anise and Fennel were surprised for a moment before they looked at each other, and shook their heads at the same time. Fennel said, "Master did not tell these 2 servants about the plan this time." Shen Miao was helpless and could only say, "One do not know what is the situation now." Looking at Lu Zhengchun who was stretching his waist and Yi Mao Kai at the other end, she felt a headache. Just as she was thinking, she saw a familiar figure walking past from the other end. Shen Miao was surprised for a moment and could not care about eating the porridge anymore. She placed the bowl in Octagonal Anise's hands and quickly chased up to that person. That person turned back and it was Ji Yushu. Shen Miao's heart was filled with 1,000 thoughts, so she pulled Ji Yushu to a corner where no one could see and asked him, "Why did you come back?" Ji Yushu asked, "What is sister-in-law's meaning?" Shen Miao frowned. "Are you not with Xie Jingxing?" Ji Yushu was surprised. "No. I am in the outer field and only the imperial family can enter the inner field. Even though I am half a relative of the imperial family, I am still not qualified." Shen Miao found it strange. She thought that Ji Yushu came over to help Xie Jingxing. Now that Ji Yushu did not go, could it be that Xie Jingxing and Emperor Yonglu were going to fight one-on-one? She said, "Tell me honestly, what does Xie Jingxing want to do this time?" Ji Yushu touched his nose in grievance. "Sister-in-law, you really asked the wrong person. Whenever third brother wanted to do something big, he would never bring me along. The more dangerous it was, the more he wouldn't let me touch it. Initially in Mingqi, I was only in charge of the Fengxian pawnshop's food and drink, and did not allow me to intervene in other matters. Yesterday at the hunting ground, Gao Yang was with him. Third brother always brings Gao Yang along if there's anything. I wanted to follow, but third brother wouldn't let me." "Gao Yang?" Shen Miao asked. "Gao Yang is also an official, how will he go?" Gao Yang disguised himself as third older brother's personal attendant and followed along. Ji Yushu said, "He is quick-witted and knows medical skills, so if anything happens, he would be able to help." Shen Miao's heart tightened. Gao Yang had medical skills, so Xie Jingxing brought it along with him, but could it be that the situation was so dangerous? She then looked at Ji Yushu and understood in her heart. Even though Xie Jingxing's mouth was bad, he was extremely protective in his bones. In any case, Ji Yushu was his Biao younger brother, just like Su Mingfeng in the past. The best way to protect Ji Yushu was not to involve him, and perhaps it was to protect the Ji family. Ji Yushu looked at Shen Miao's expression and this time he became smarter. He asked, "Sister-in-law, is it that something happened to third older brother?" Shen Miao said, "No. It is just that I see that he did not return for a long time and my heart is anxious." Chapter 919. Impossible. Ji Yushu said resolutely and decisively, "Sister-in-law is not a person who has no sense of propriety. You were just too strange just now. Yesterday I went to look for Gao Yang, but Gao Yang was also mysterious. Every time something happens to them, it was still all right when they were in Mingqi, but after returning to Longyi, he drew a clear line with me. Could it be that he wanted to do something by himself?" Shun Miao looked at Ji Yushu's flustered and exasperated look, and her heart sighed with sorrow. Xie Jingxing was used to putting aside the surrounding people and bear everything by himself, such as the Marquis of Lin and Princess Rong Xian and Su Mingfeng in the Ding capital. Now it was Ji Yushu's turn, but some things were indeed a blessing in disguise. She said, "Sorry, I am unable to answer you because I also do not know what he wants to do. Hunting in the inner field, only the imperial family can enter. Could it be that there is danger?" Ji Yushu said, "Third older brother and his majesty are always strange. Sister-in-law, you really do not know?" "Do not know what?" Without waiting for Shan Miao to answer, a female voice was heard from behind, and it was Ji Foreign walking over. One did not know how long she had been listening here. She looked at Ji Yushu and then looked at Shan Miao, and her expression became strange. She said, "What happened to Xingji and Jingxing? What do you mean by what you just said?" Ji Foreign originally wanted to call Shan Miao over to return to the city with her, but who knew that she coincidentally saw Shan Miao grabbing Ji Yushu over. Star Anise and Fennel were busy guarding Lu Chun and Yi Mao Kai, and did not guard against Ji Foreign, but Ji Foreign heard the conversation between Shan Miao and Ji Yushu. Ji Yushu said, "Mother, nothing much. I am playing with sister-in-law. Don't try to fool your mother." Ji Foreign looked at Ji Yushu and said angrily, "Initially let you go to Mingqi to look for Jingxing, but you did not return. One do not know what you are doing in Mingqi. I do not care what you do, but you are after all the young master of the Ji family. I ask you, what do you know? Why did you say those words? Jingxing and Xingji, is there danger?" Ji Yushu was speechless from his mother's words and looked at Shan Miao for help. Shan Miao quickly said, "Imu, you have misunderstood. Yushu and I were just playing. It was just that His Highness did not return at this time and his heart was somewhat anxious, so he asked Yushu. Yushu does not know anything and it was I who thought too much. Yumu must not blame him." Ji Foreign looked at Shan Miao again and her eyes were a little stern. "Jiaonyang, this matter is not a small matter. As they were talking, Octagonal Anise suddenly ran over. He ignored Madame Ji's presence and said, "Madam, they're back. His Majesty has left the mountain." It was as if Ji Yushu was granted amnesty and quickly said to Ji Foreign, "Look, mother, don't let your imagination run wild. Let's go see the lion that third brother and His Majesty are hunting." Finished speaking, she ran away. When Shen Miao heard that Emperor Yonglu and his entourage had returned, she heaved a sigh of relief and smiled at Ji Foreign. "Let's go over too." Ji Foreign still wanted to say something, but when she saw Shan Miao's calm expression, she swallowed her words and sighed, allowing Shan Miao to pull her over. One saw a group of imperial guards walking out from the outside, and the person leading them was Emperor Yonglu. But what was strange was that Emperor Yonglu did not ride a horse but walked by himself. Those with sharp eyes could see that the sword at Emperor Yongli's waist seemed to be a little blood red. But for the imperial family hunt, it was said that the emperor personally came to hunt, but in reality it was an animal etiquette. How could it make the emperor risk his life to go? It was only the guards pointing arrows at the side and the emperor would instruct. And now the meaning was that Emperor Yonglu personally took action? Emperor Yongli's expression was as usual, and one could not tell whether he was happy or angry. Imperial concubine Jing waited in the carriage for a long time and immediately went up to greet him lovingly. "Your Majesty finally came out. This concubine had waited here bitterly for an entire night and even my eyes are red." Emperor Yonglu only glanced at her faintly and did not reply. Shen Miao could see clearly that Yi Maocai's expression was normal, but Lu Zhengchun was somewhat gloomy. The imperial guards at the back dumped the things that the horses were pulling onto the ground with a bang, instantly causing the surrounding womenfolk to exclaim. That thing was not anything else but the corpse of a huge lion. It was stained with blood and there were numerous arrow holes on its back and abdomen. It seemed that it had gone through a fierce battle. Immediately, there were courtiers who flattered and came forward to congratulate. Your Majesty is wise and mighty. It is the fortune of our great Liang. Everyone followed suit and followed along as they knelt down to sing praises. Xun Miao also followed and knelt down. Emperor Yonglu indicated for everyone to rise. But Xun Miao did not see Xie Jingxing's figure. After everyone rose, Lu Zhengzhen suddenly spoke, Your Majesty, why is there only Your Majesty and no trace of His Highness Prince Rui? It seemed that everyone just remembered that Prince Rui was not present. Emperor Yonglu stared closely at Lu Zhengzhen. His eyes as cold as ice. Prince Rui is injured and has returned from the other side to the city for treatment. Everyone was in an uproar. Chapter 920. Xun Miao's heart tightened. As long as Xie Jingxing was able to conceal it slightly, he would most likely act as if nothing had happened, and Emperor Yonglu would not say the matter of Prince Rui being injured in front of the Lu and Yi families. But at this moment, Emperor Yonglu did not hide anything. Did this mean that this matter was so serious that it could not be concealed? Ji Foran stood beside Xun Miao and immediately held Xun Miao's hand tightly. Most likely she was afraid that Xun Miao would be anxious and even advised her. It is hard to avoid friction in this hunting ground. Most likely he was accidentally injured somewhere. With so many guards protecting, it should be fine. But her face was filled with worry. Xun Miao did not want Ji Foran to panic, so she responded to her, but her heart did not think so. Since Emperor Yonglu let Xie Jingxing leave the city first and did not let Xie Jingxing be exposed in front of these officials, then Xie Jingxing's injury would definitely not be as simple as a small friction. She looked around and did not see Xie Jingxing, Tai Yi and the rest. She was even more anxious. Emperor Yonglu did not seem to want to speak more, and even though he had hunted this lion, his expression did not seem to be happy. Everyone guessed Prince Rui's injury but knew that Emperor Yonglu was not happy this time. Everyone knew that Prince Rui and Emperor Yonglu had a close relationship, and no matter if Prince Rui's injury was serious or not, the two of them would go to the inner field together. The one injured was Prince Rui, so Emperor Yonglu would definitely not be happy. Because of this, no one dared to talk to Emperor Yonglu at this moment. Even Jing Fei put away her arrogance and carefully waited at the side. Since the lion was hunted, everyone naturally did not need to stay on the hunting ground. Emperor Yonglu had to return to the palace, and the families of the officials also had to return to their residences. When everyone was being careful, Lu Zhengzhen had to ask about Emperor Yongli's 60th year ceremony as if nothing had happened. Emperor Yonglu usually still had some face towards Lu Zhengzhen, but today he scoffed coldly and left with a flick of his sleeves. The officials were well aware of that unhappy attitude and whispered to each other. Lu Zhengzhen was not only not angry, he seemed to be somewhat happy, which made that fiendish face look extremely terrifying. Xun Miao also rushed back to the residence of Prince Rui, as she was worried about Xie Jingxing's injuries. Ji Foran and Ji Yushu also wanted to go, but Xun Miao shook her head. This matter is not clear yet, and one fear that it is not that simple. If Yimu and Yushu go now, it would be easy for others to exploit the loophole. I will first go back to take a look at what exactly is going on. Yimu and Yushu will come over when His Highness is better. Pausing, she then said, the more it is at this time, the more one must not panic. Even though Ji Yushu and Ji Foran did not understand the ins and outs of this matter, they were after all people who had rolled in the whirlpool of imperial power, and slowly felt out the meaning in Xun Miao's words. Ji Darren deeply agreed with Xun Miao's words. Thus Ji Yushu and Ji Foran no longer followed. The few of them parted ways, and Xun Miao, Mo Qing and entourage immediately rushed towards the residence of Prince Rui without stopping. Star Anise and Fennel comforted Xun Miao. Foran, do not worry. Master's martial arts are not weak. An average person would not be able to hurt him. Perhaps this is Master's plan to confuse the enemy. Xun Miao shook her head. I do not feel good in my heart. It was more than bad. It was as if something was tugging at her heart. This feeling made her feel very uneasy, and she could not wait to appear in the residence of Prince Rui the next moment to see what situation Xie Jingxing was in. Star Anise and Fennel looked at each other in dismay and did not make a sound. When they reached the residence of Prince Rui, Xun Miao got off the carriage and directly walked towards the residence's doors. The guards at the door quickly let her in, and when Xun Miao stepped in, she found that the residence was strangely quiet. You're tuning into the Lime's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.